Whoosh! Whoosh! A layer of purple and silver took Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng throughout the bridges, walkways, and other paths in the depths of Xianyang Palace. The power of Nan Gongsheng's current spatial abilities couldn't be compared to the past. He was like a fish in water in this complex landscape. Zhao Feng sensed something, and his expression changed dramatically. A powerful intent that seemed like it could slash through anything in its path appeared at the location where they just fought moments ago. The aura of this intent had reached perfection. Emperor intent. Nan Gongsheng slowed down a bit as shock filled his face. The duo exchanged glances, and Zhao Feng soon calmed down as he murmured to himself, as expected of a peerless prodigy from a 4-star power. Shenyuan 1? He's also formed Emperor intent. Nan Gongsheng couldn't hide the shock on his face. Shenyuan 1 was only ranked 7th on the Imperial Genius rankings. If he was already so powerful, it was hard to imagine how terrifying the top 3 would be. Of course, if all the geniuses who entered the Divine Illusion dimension were able to leave safely, the Imperial Genius rankings would change quite a bit. It's not just Emperor intent. He's become an emperor already. Zhao Feng sighed. When they had gathered at the dragon-shaped crater, Zhao Feng inspected Shenyuan 1 and found that his aura was incredibly close to an emperor's, and that was with him purposely concealing it. Void God Realm Emperor. Nan Gongsheng was somewhat unable to accept it. A 20-something emperor was unimaginable in the Tsang Ocean. Even the left-eyed heavenly emperor at his peak had only reached the middle stages of the Void God Realm. He had formed peak emperor intent, but that didn't mean that he had become an actual emperor. Retreat under my directions, Zhao Feng said in a deep tone. He could feel a powerful aura approaching and tracking them. Zhao Feng didn't want to fight with an emperor right now. No one would be willing if they couldn't get anything out of it, and Zhao Feng still needed to find out why so many forces hated them and wanted to kill them. Who is pretending to be us? A cold light flashed through Zhao Feng's eyes. This was the first time anger had appeared on his face since he entered the Divine Illusion dimension. The Jiang family and Grand Duke Qi's palace didn't seem to be acting. Whoosh! Whoosh! The purple and silver light speed reached another level. Bam! Bam! Whoosh! On the way, Zhao Feng circulated his physical force and Soul Dao techniques to clear some of their remnant auras. Zhao Feng knew a bit about tracking due to the pursuit of death. He was constantly being chased, and then he was the one chasing someone else. Not only did he get rid of their auras, he even created some fake auras. About the time it took to make tea later, the powerful Emperor aura from behind had disappeared. Nan Gongsheng let out a breath. His partner was indeed worthy of being the left-eyed heavenly emperor who stunned the Tsang Ocean. They were able to throw off Shenyuan when so easily. The current situation is very bad for us. Almost all of the forces that have entered Xianyang Palace are now our enemies. Zhao Feng's expression was solemn and showed no signs of being smug. Thinking about it, Nan Gongsheng's scalp tingled. Every 3-star and 4-star force in Xianyang Palace was against them. Who dares to pretend to be us? What benefits do they get when we're all still threatened by the Black Serpent Dragon? Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but think. Zhao Feng first thought of Zhou Wuji from Nine Darkness Palace, but the enmity between them was only about face and a few treasures. It hadn't reached a stage where one side must die. After all, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon was their true enemy. According to logic, no one should have a motive to do this. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. Nan Gongsheng nodded his head. Even the non-human experts didn't have a motive to do this since internal conflict was no good to anyone at the moment. Only by working together did everyone have a chance of survival against the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. I might know the answer. Zhao Feng didn't speak since any communication would be sensed by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon, but his gaze told Nan Gongsheng some information. Nan Gongsheng started to think. Whoosh! Whoosh! The duo landed near a bridge, and there was a green lake below where fish were playing around. Right at this moment, a group walked over from a building not far away. I don't believe Brother Feng would do this. The cold voice of a female sounded from the group. Her voice was extremely decisive. Zhao Yufei, we all saw it. The purple-haired demonic duo ambushed us from behind and crippled 2 disciples of the Duanmu family. One of them was my brother. A male in black robes said angrily. Magnificent power glowed from his body as his emotions boiled. He seemed to have just become a king not long ago. Yufei, Duanmuyu, no matter what happened, we shall not fight amongst ourselves. The elder in green robes said. This group was from the Duanmu family, one of the 8 big families. In comparison to before they entered the divine illusion dimension, the Duanmu family had one more king, but the person with the strongest aura was still the goddess-like Zhao Yufei. Her aura was close to a peak-tier king. Yufei. Under the bridge, Zhao Feng's expression became grim. He couldn't stand this any longer. He didn't think that the fake purple-haired demonic duo would even ambush the Duanmu family. Sang. With a flash, Zhao Feng appeared in front of the group from the Duanmu family with wild purple hair blowing in the wind. Zhao Feng. Nan Gongxing's expression changed slightly. He didn't think that Zhao Feng would reveal himself, but he quickly followed behind. One had to know that the Duanmu family had 3 kings, and Zhao Yufei's strength was immeasurable. Furthermore, all of the forces could communicate with each other in the depths of Xianxia Palace. Purple-haired, demonic duo. Those from the Duanmu family were filled with anger and killing intent. These two were far too arrogant. Not only did they just ambush them not long ago, they were now coming out right in front of them. The green-robed elder's first thought was to stall the duo and ask Sky Suspension Palace, the Imperials, and the other forces for help. Yufei. Zhao Feng slowly sent out a palm toward the group from the Duanmu family. The bodies of everyone from the Duanmu family shook, and their consciousnesses became chaotic. Everything started to blur as they arrived in a misty city of illusions. Most people were unable to properly control their bodies, and their senses were muddled. Even an older king like the elder in green robes could only barely manage to form a defensive barrier, but the messages he tried to send through the soul dimension were like stones sinking into the ocean. In just one palm, everyone from the Duanmu family fell into Zhao Feng's illusion maze domain. What a profound method! Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but admire. Only Zhao Yufei wasn't affected by the illusion maze domain. Her face was filled with surprise as she glanced at the elites of the Duanmu family walking around in circles. You're the real brother Feng, Zhao Yufei said confidently as joy appeared on her face. The purple-haired youth in front of her had one hand raised in the air as he used the illusion maze domain to envelop everyone from the Duanmu family. Yufei, the fake purple-haired demonic duo also ambushed the Duanmu family? Zhao Feng asked. They look exactly the same as you too. Zhao Yufei nodded and said. When she heard the word fake, she let out a breath. Can you recreate what happened? Zhao Feng paused. When one reached the Void God realm, their souls would become extremely strong, and they would be able to recreate something from their memories. Zhao Yufei waved her hand, and a purple screen appeared in the air. Images appeared on the purple screen. At the beginning, the Duanmu family was fighting against a wave of vines, and there were several fruits on the vines. These vines were extremely troublesome, and Zhao Yufei was the main force against it. However, just as they were about to take the fruits, Shua! With a flash of purple and silver, 2 purple-haired figures leapt out. How is that possible? Zhao Feng's and Nan Gongxing's expressions changed dramatically. The duo people in the image were the exact same as Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. They were extremely fast, and their figures and skills were similar to the purple-haired demonic duo. The duo then ambushed them and stole the precious fruits, and they succeeded because Zhao Yufei had to deal with the vines. Brother Feng. Zhao Yufei revealed a painful expression of disbelief as she watched the purple-haired demonic duo fly away. Whoosh! A layer of purple and silver light covered the 2 purple-haired figures as they merged into space and disappeared. So fast! Could one of them specialize in spatial techniques as well? Nan Gongsheng was shocked. One couldn't tell the real purple-haired demonic duo from the fake from images alone, especially given how they managed to fade into space. It's hard to believe, Zhao Feng murmured. There were countless unique and special people amongst the geniuses that entered the divine illusion dimension. They were able to analyze 3 powers that the fake duo had. 1, a strong copying ability. 2. Spatial techniques similar to Nan Gongxing's. 3. A secret technique that could allow them to merge with their surroundings, which might be related to the first or second ability. Yufei, did you notice any suspicious points? Zhao Yufei thought for a while before answering. Based on what happened to the other forces, the fake duo only appeared at the critical moment before stealing from them. Critical moment? Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng looked at each other and felt incredulous. When they had stolen from others before, it was extremely hard to grasp the right timing every time. I understand. The answer in Zhao Feng's heart was becoming clearer and clearer, and it was just waiting to burst out. Right at this moment, another group started to come into sight. Yufei, we'll meet later. Zhao Feng suddenly released his hand's gesture. Plop, plop. Many of the Duanmu family elites knelt on the ground or became unstable. Whoosh! Only then did the elder in green and company leave the illusion maze domain. Where did the purple-haired demonic duo go? Everyone let out a breath, but they were puzzled. Only the elder in green and the male in black had shocked expressions. They caught a glimpse of a purple and silver streak merge into the buildings of Xiayang Palace. Outside Xiayang Palace, the enormous black-scaled body of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon twirled in the air. It occasionally smashed its claw toward the god's forbidden array and caused hundreds and thousands of purple and blood-colored beams of light to shoot out. Zzzz, the game's only just begun, and my chess pieces have already come into play. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon had a playful expression. It could feel and control the situation and movements of everyone within Xiayang Palace through the mark of destruction. It was like an outsider watching a battle in a cage. At the same moment, in a certain corner of Xiayang Palace, two purple-haired figures hid in a large tree in a courtyard. The next target to ambush is Sky Sword Pavilion. The little sword saint of Sky Sword Pavilion isn't simple. We need to be more careful this time. The appearances of these two purple-haired figures were exactly the same as Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. A cold voice that seemed to gaze down on every living being sounded in the ears of the duo. Be careful. The true purple-haired demonic duo may have guessed your identities already. Understood. Lord Black Serpent Dragon. The two purple-haired figures had respectful expressions. At this moment, a group from Sky Sword Pavilion walked into a six-sided metallic building. The six-sided building was made from a dark red metallic material that gave off a fiery hot aura before they even got close. Building of Refinement. A white-mustached man from Sky Sword Pavilion read the 3 words on the building with glittering eyes. Hearing those words, the hearts of several geniuses shook. I can feel the summoning of a divine sword. The little sword saint seemed to have entered a mystic state of the sword Tao. Who? His white mustache and white hair suddenly blew in the wind as a surge of divine sword intent shot out from his eyes. Who's there? The little sword saint instantly turned around, and a half-transparent streak of dazzling 5-colored swordlight pierced toward a large 3 behind him. This attack traveled through both the physical and mental energy dimensions. Arg! What a terrifying sword attack! The hearts of the two purple-haired figures in the tree shook. In that instant, the sharp expression of the little sword saint seemed to enlarge, and the sword beams that covered the sky made the duo panic. Sii. The two purple-haired figures groaned as they turned into a streak of purple and silver light and sped into a garden in the distance. Senior Sword Saint, those two seemed to be the purple-haired demonic duo. A youth in black that seemed to have just broken through said respectfully. The power of the sword Tao that the little sword saint unleashed just now was terrifying, and his sword intent could travel through both the physical and mental energy dimensions. Humph, they're just two non-human brats. I don't want to waste my energy on them. The little sword saint snickered coldly and led the group from Sky Sword Pavilion toward the 6-sided metallic building known as the Building of Refinement. There were black metallic doors at the front and back of the 6-sided building. This Building of Refinement definitely contains a peerless weapon. If we get it, we may be able to fight against the Black Serpent Dragon, the little sword saint said in a deep tone, and the elites of Sky Sword Pavilion started to inspect the place. A while later, whoosh, 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 another group landed in front of the Building of Refinement, and their force was stronger than Sky Sword Pavilion. Great gone Imperials! A sword light seemed to flash through the eyes of the cold female sword cultivator from Sky Sword Pavilion. Indeed, the figures of the 8th Prince, the 9th Prince, the 13th Prince, and company came into sight. My sacred Emperor's sword sensed a powerful sword intent here. The 13th Prince's eyebrows rose as he inspected the six-sided metallic building. Gee! The spiritual connection rat on Luo Zun's shoulder gave off excited sounds. Looks like this building of refinement definitely contains an important treasure of the sword Dao, the 8th Prince thought. The Great Gone Imperials also started to inspect the building of refinement, and an Imperial blacksmith master found that there was a flaw in the God's forbidden array around it. Indeed, if the God's forbidden array was complete, we wouldn't have been able to sense the aura of the treasures within. The blacksmith master had a smile on his face. In a corner of a faraway garden. That old man is terrifying. Two purple-haired figures looked at each other as solemnness filled their faces. Shwa! Shwa! With a flash, the two purple-haired figures turned into two non-human males. One of them was covered in blue scales and had blue horns, similar to the serpent dragon race. The other non-human male had a pair of earthen yellow horns and a pair of beady green eyes. He was made up of green muscle. That old man is most likely the strongest and scariest of everyone who entered from the outside world, the Blue Serpent King said in a wary tone. He's terrifying. The beady green-eyed non-human male hadn't fully recovered yet. Even Void God Realm Emperors might not be his match. Even the ability of my Thousand Changes dragon bloodline didn't escape his eyes. There's no need to rush. The little sword saint has weaknesses as well. He used to be a peak emperor that had a chance to break through to the mystic light realm. But now that he's reached the end of his lifespan, his life force and soul are withering, and his cultivation has dropped. Any powerful move will use up his life force and soul strength, Wei Jing said. Wei Jing had heard stories about the white-mustached little sword saint. It was definitely a miracle. When the little sword saint just started cultivating, his talent was extremely normal, and it could even be considered trash. However, his comprehension of the sword Dao reached a terrifying stage, and he managed to become an emperor after countless years of effort. However, after a huge battle where he ended up killing a mystic light realm's sacred lord, the little sword saint's life force and soul started to wither. The little sword saint was relying on his powerful sword Dao intent and various treasures to slow the rate of his withering life force and soul. But if he wasn't able to find any heaven-defying treasures in the divine illusion dimension, the little sword saint wouldn't be able to live more than 3 years. The building of refinement may contain a not bad divine weapon or treasure. You too shouldn't miss this opportunity. The black serpent dragon's voice suddenly sounded in their minds. Divine weapon or treasure. Wei Jing and green beady eyes looked at each other and felt their heart rates speed up. The black destruction serpent dragon had a rather high standard. So, not bad, definitely wouldn't be something simple. The black serpent dragon's suggestion made the two, who were about to leave, stay behind. We'll have a chance to sneak in when there's more people. As long as the little sword saint doesn't use his sword intent against us, then no one should be able to see through us. Green beady eyes nodded his head. With the help of the black destruction serpent dragon, the two non-humans were like fish in water inside Xianxia Palace. However, right as the duo was making their plans, a shocking scene appeared. That's... Green beady eyes raised his eyes and looked into the sky. At the same time, the members from Sky Sword Pavilion and the Imperials in front of the six-sided metallic building all looked up as if they had sensed something. A transparent purple eye of heaven appeared in the sky and gazed down coldly, as if it was the heavenly Tao itself. The little sword saint's heart shook as he looked at the eye of heaven. He wasn't able to see through the eye of heaven even with his sword intent. That eye... The 8th Prince felt that this eye was familiar. Gee. The spiritual connection rat on Luo Zun's shoulder started to tremble in fear as the eye of heaven gazed down. In front of the six-sided building, all of the geniuses and elites were silent. The eye of heaven gazed down with undefiable mental energy pressure. Even the little sword saint felt pressured. In the faraway garden, what kind of existence is that? Wei Jing and green beady eyes felt a coldness and pressure from the eye of heaven, and their hairs stood up on end. It was as if the eye of heaven was looking right at them. Shwa! A multicolored light flashed around green beady eyes. The next instant, green beady eyes and Wei Jing disappeared. A couple breaths later, the duo pretended to be two small trees that hid in the garden. Humph! A cold voice sounded next to their ears alongside a burst of mental energy. Cold sweat appeared on Wei Jing's and green beady eyes' foreheads. Shwa! Luckily for them, the eye of heaven only paused for a few moments, as if it was only looking down from above. Lord Black Serpent Dragon, what? Green beady eyes couldn't help but ask as his hairs stood up. Although the eye of heaven looked like it had no offensive abilities, it gave the duo a dangerous feeling. Aunt, you're courting death. The angry roar of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon sounded next to their ears. Wei Jing and green beady eyes felt their blood shake. Elsewhere in Xianxia Palace, next to the god's forbidden array, Shwa! A transparent purple eye of heaven faced the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon, only separated by the god's forbidden array. Mental energy spike. A purple spike shot out from the eye of heaven and stabbed into the Black Serpent Dragon's soul. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon was unharmed, but it became enraged. A measly ant dared to attack a majestic being from the Destruction Dragon race? Boom! The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon smashed its claw forward, but it was blocked by the god's forbidden array. The god's forbidden array was extremely unique. Attacks from outside would be blocked, but attacks from within wouldn't be affected. Void Space Eye Slash. A 2-yard-long blade with the immortal and undying aura of God Tribulation lightning sliced through the Black Serpent Dragon's head. Shoo! A faint mark that drew blood appeared on the skin of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's head, but it instantly healed. Roar! The Black Serpent Dragon clashed its enormous body against the god's forbidden array, and its roar alerted all the geniuses and elites with a mark of destruction within Xianxia Palace. Since the connection between Wei Jing and green beady eyes was extremely tight with the Black Serpent Dragon, their blood tossed and turned, and they almost coughed out blood. Shwa! The eye of heaven only stayed within Xianxia Palace for a couple breaths and unleashed a few attacks before quickly disappearing. As expected, the body of a destruction dragon. Within an underground cellar in the depths of Xianxia Palace, Zhao Feng slowly opened his eyes. What happened just now? Nan Gongsheng heard the Black Serpent Dragon's roar from the mark of destruction in his body, as well as a burning sensation. He didn't know that Zhao Feng just used the Eye of Heaven to gaze over and the entire Xianxia Palace and attack the Black Serpent Dragon to test its abilities. This was the first time Zhao Feng had used the Eye of Heaven in several years. The reason he did so now wasn't to show off his strength to the other forces or challenge the unrivaled Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. He only had one goal, and that was to oversee the situation of the entire Xianxia Palace. The appearance of the fake, purple-haired demonic duo made the other forces shun him, and the Black Serpent Dragon outside Xianxia Palace secretly controlling people made Zhao Feng feel like he was losing control of the situation. They all had an enemy right in front of them, but fortune existed alongside danger. He didn't want to lose control right now. With the Eye of Heaven, Zhao Feng could oversee the entire Xianxia Palace and control the changing tide. As he guessed, the fake purple-haired demonic duo was being controlled by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. If they didn't have the pointers given by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon, how was the fake purple-haired demonic duo able to appear at the critical moment and escape successfully every time? Apart from Zhao Feng's Eye of Heaven, only the Black Serpent Dragon had such ability. The Black Serpent Dragon could monitor the situation within Xianxia Palace through the mark of destruction in everyone's body. The difference from Zhao Feng was that the Black Serpent Dragon couldn't join in personally at the moment, so it needed the Blue Serpent King and Green Beady Eyes to do its bidding. Roar, woo bam, boom. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's furious attacks outside Xianxia Palace increased in frequency. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon should be able to charge in after a bit more than 20 days. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. The Black Serpent Dragon probably wanted these outsiders to act as the front line. After all, it was still extremely wary of the ancient god Xianxia, and Xiayang Palace probably still had a lot of hidden dangers. What happened just now? In the underground cellar, Nan Gongsheng looked at Zhao Feng. At this moment, he discovered that Zhao Feng had a confident expression, as if he could control the entire palace's situation. It wasn't hard for Nan Gongsheng to guess that what happened just now was related to Zhao Feng. We should get rid of some little trouble before we act. Zhao Feng smiled and said, You mean the mark of destruction? Nan Gongsheng immediately understood. Zhao Feng nodded his head and sat down. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng started to try to get rid of the mark of destruction. This is just a simplified version of the actual mark of destruction, and it only contains a wisp of aura from the destruction dragon bloodline. Nan Gongsheng, try using your spatial abilities and the evil god crystal to devour it, Zhao Feng said as he tried to resolve the mark of destruction. The mark of destruction contained the powerful laws of destruction, but luckily, Zhao Feng knew a bit about those from cultivating destruction wind lightning in his previous life. The laws of destruction from the destruction dragon race concerned the origin of the world itself. Zhao Feng circulated his water of wind lightning and took out a green water sky lotus which had purification abilities. In the depths of his body, wisps of scarlet black aura had merged into his flesh and bones, and it was even eroding his soul. Zhao Feng tried to move the scarlet black aura, but nothing happened. Outside Xiayang Palace, ignorant brat! Even though it's just a simplified version of the mark of destruction, anyone weaker than a demigod can't do anything to get rid of it. The black serpent dragon paused his attacks for a moment as mockery appeared on its face. However, its expression changed dramatically the next moment. How is that possible? The black destruction serpent dragon suddenly felt one of his marks was becoming weaker, the mark from one of the purple-haired demonic duo, Zhao Feng. Several hundred wisps of God Tribulation lightning in Zhao Feng's purple soul sea started to glow and radiate a power that could scare both gods and ghosts alike. The water of wind lightning merged into the God Tribulation lightning and started to cleanse and purify the scarlet black aura. Luckily, I've recovered part of my Emperor intent. Zhao Feng could now control part of the God Tribulation lightning in his body, and with his previous life's experience, he used it just like how a fish swam in the ocean. The lightning could easily merge into his flesh, body, and even his bloodline, so it was relatively easy for it to cleanse him. However, the power of the mark of destruction concerned the most original laws of destruction, so even the God Tribulation lightning couldn't completely gain an advantage. Zhao Feng's main advantage was that this was his body while the mark of destruction would have no reinforcements. An hour later, Zhao Feng managed to force the mark of destruction into a corner, and he used the water of wind lightning, which had the God Tribulation lightning merged into it, to seal it and slowly grind it down. At this point, he could now also help Nan Gongsheng handle his mark of destruction. Since Nan Gongsheng was extremely talented in spatial laws and had the power of the evil god crystal as well, he could actually threaten the mark of destruction to a certain degree. However, he didn't have the god's spiritual eye, so he couldn't clearly sense where the mark of destruction in his body was. Pa! One of Zhao Feng's hands landed on Nan Gongsheng's shoulder, and his senses instantly changed. He could now feel the mark of destruction's aura very clearly. This type of inspection, Nan Gongsheng was stunned. Zhao Feng had shared the senses of his god's spiritual eye with Nan Gongsheng. Nan Gongsheng's blurry senses toward the mark of destruction instantly became hundreds of times clearer. He immediately circulated a layer of wicked purple and silver light that quickly enveloped the scarlet black aura and started to devour it. The evil god crystal in Nan Gongsheng's body, released a wicked purple glow, and the powerful aura radiating from it made even Zhao Feng find it hard to breathe. As expected of a true god crystal, Zhao Feng thought. Most of the god crystals that appeared in the world were substandard god crystals, such as the ones used to operate the spiritual zone teleportation arrays. That said, substandard god crystals already contained almost infinite power. Zhao Feng's flaming chariot had a substandard god crystal, which supplied it with almost infinite energy. On the other hand, Nan Gongsheng obtained the evil god crystal, which was even more unique. It was a true god crystal at the very least, and it was apparently formed from the god's power of an evil god. Nan Gongshang managed to prevent the aura of the mark of destruction from seeping out and started to slowly grind it. However, both Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were unable to get rid of their marks within a short amount of time. I need around a day while Nan Gongsheng needs 2, Zhao Feng estimated. While he was resolving the marks of destruction, Zhao Feng was also paying attention to what was happening within Xianxia Palace. In front of the 6-sided metallic building of refinement, the forces led by the Imperials and Sky Sword Pavilion were trying to break through the gods' forbidden array. All the places where they had met fortune earlier didn't even have the gods' forbidden array around them since they were all just general items. However, the building of refinement was different since it had the gods' forbidden array protecting it. Everyone relax. The gods' forbidden array within the palace don't have much of a counterattacking ability since it's mainly here to protect the building itself, an Imperial Array Master said. Apart from the Imperials and Sky Sword Pavilion, there was also the Duanmu family, the Chao family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and various other forces gathered in front of the building of refinement. These groups all had at least one Void God Realm King. Most of the geniuses and elites that had entered Xianxia Palace had more or less acquired fortune. As of right now, every member had battle power comparable to a quasi-king or a true king, so they weren't to be underestimated. I think that we should use an array to break through the array. We can build an array that acts opposite to this array and use it to widen the flaw. The Array Master smiled and said. The forces all sent out their Array Masters to construct an array in front of the building of refinement. Half a day later, a complex and condensed array was successfully built in front of the building of refinement. Wang, Bo, a dark red whirlpool glowed around the building of refinement, and the nearby experts all felt a burning sensation. Their mouths became dry, and they were like ants running around on a hot pan. If Void God Realm Kings stayed here for too long, they might be roasted. Luckily, the flaw in front of the building of refinement was expanding, and the groups took turns in order to sustain the array. We don't even need a full day to enter the building of refinement. If I'm correct, this place should be where the weapons and treasures are repaired in Xianxia Palace, the Array Master said with a smile. In a garden far away, 2 purple-haired figures merged into the trees and watched every movement at the building of refinement. We'll choose a good chance to act after the building of refinement opens. Expectation appeared on the Blue Serpent King Wei Jing's face. The building of refinement hadn't opened yet, but the aura of treasures could already be felt. The Black Serpent Dragon had said that there might be a valuable treasure contained within the building of refinement. At the same time, in front of a dark wooden building, the geniuses and elites from Sky Suspension Palace led by Shenyuan 1 and the other 2 kings stood in front of a door. Heaven's Legacy Mystic Technique. Open. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge waved his hand, and a wave of dark green water runes merged into the door and gave off a golden light. Shenyuan 1 and the female in apricot robes both put a hand on Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's shoulder. The door to the dark building was pushed open by Senior Martial Brother Zhuge, and everyone saw a bunch of old books giving off a faint glow of light. These old books floated in the building like stars in space. There were at least a couple dozen thousand books. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Those from Sky Suspension Palace quickly entered the dark room. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge then carefully closed the door to the book room. However, no one realized that, when the last half-step king stepped into the building, a transparent purple eye of heaven appeared in the sky above the book room. A weird light glittered in the eye of heaven as it disappeared from the sky. Within the underground cellar, I've succeeded in resolving it. Zhao Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The scarlet-black aura of the mark of destruction in his body had disappeared. The God Tribulation Lightning was indeed worthy of being Zhao Feng's killing move. It even managed to get rid of the simplified mark of destruction. For the next half a day, Zhao Feng helped Nan Gongsheng resolve the mark of destruction in his body. An hour later, in front of the building of refinement, success! The dark red glow on the surface of the 6-sided tower dimmed, especially near the area at the front entrance. Crack! Boom! The black metallic door was slowly pushed open by an invisible force, and the 5-colored array in front of the building of refinement shattered. Bam! Bam! At the moment the metallic door opened, a terrifying wave of hot air shot out. One could see a half-transparent dark red wind blow across some experts near the doorway. Arg! Screams sounded in front of the building of refinement. Some geniuses and elites that didn't react in time were incinerated. Arg! The wave of hot air blasted out from the building of refinement's door, and screams sounded as 4 or 5 geniuses were turned into a pile of ashes. There was more than a dozen half-step kings and kings that were injured as well. An imperial genius that had just become a king was hit by the wave of hot air head-on, and his scorched body lay in front of the door. In front of the building of refinement's black metallic door, the Imperials, Sky Sword Pavilion, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and company were dumbfounded. Sii. Some of the experts that managed to escape all took in a cold breath. Over 90% of the geniuses and elites here would be killed if the wave of air hit them head-on. One could only say that those near the door were unlucky. Many times, winners weren't necessarily the strongest, but the luckiest. It's my fault. The building of refinement hasn't been opened for a very long time, and the fire in the furnace was never extinguished. Since the heat couldn't be released, it accumulated, which caused a wave of hot air to blast out when the door opened. Guilt was written all over the face of the Imperial Array Master. His face and clothes were black as well. If it weren't for the 8th Prince and the wrinkled elder protecting him at the critical moment, he wouldn't have been able to survive. A while later, the heat from the building of refinement was no longer as strong, but it was still hot. No one dared to enter the black metallic door yet. We should wait for another half a day for most of the heat to dissipate. The handful of array masters present came to an agreement. Everyone could see a big furnace within the building of refinement, and it gave off a scarlet-red glow of light. Although this furnace was called a furnace, it was better described as a large underground crater, or even a fiery abyss. The glow of flames from within the furnace made everyone feel a burning sensation. That furnace is still radiating such a terrifying flame even after being here for so long. There were many older elites present, but the flames in the furnace seemed to be everlasting, and no one understood how that was possible. Maybe this is the domain of gods. Excitement and expectation appeared on everyone's face. Maybe they had reached an important place in Xianxia Palace. Although they had all gained a lot of fortune already, the things that they had obtained were considered very normal in Xianxia Palace. Everyone be careful. I can feel a large source of forbidden flames within the furnace. If it explodes, even a demigod wouldn't be able to retreat unharmed. The little sword saint said in a deep tone. Hearing that, everyone's heart shook. If even a demigod wouldn't be able to retreat unharmed, then that would be the power of a god. As time passed, the heat radiating from the building of refinement started to dissipate, and most of it had faded after half a day. At this point in time, the light from within the building of refinement was calmer, and one could start to see stones, tattered weapons, and various pieces within. Although these items were tattered and broken, the aura they released still shook everyone's heart. Wang, the weapons present all started to shake, including some inheritance sacred weapons. The sacred emperor's sword in the 13th prince's hand started to hum as if it was excited. God-fallen metal. That's one of the ancient materials sealed in the forbidden land of the Imperials. The 8th prince was stunned. He recognized that there was God-fallen metal in front of the furnace, which was extremely rare in the Great Gone Lord dynasty. It only appeared once every couple dozen millennia, and the Imperials needed to seal and guard it because even they only had a few pieces. This was just one of the random stones present. Materials similar to the God-fallen metal could be seen everywhere in front of the furnace. Of course, the things that truly attracted them were the tattered weapons and pieces on the ground. Some were half-complete and some were even complete. The aura of a peerless weapon came from the depths of the furnace. Only the little sword saint, the 9th prince, Zhao Yufei, and a small number of others could sense the aura of the complete weapons in the depths of the furnace. However, since these auras had been here for so long, these people didn't dare to touch anything with their divine senses, since that might create an unstoppable disaster. After all, this was the building of refinement of a god's palace. It wouldn't be surprising if heaven-grade divine weapons appeared, and there might even be some legendary ancient god weapons. I shall go in first. A sharp glint of light flashed through the little sword saint's eyes, and sword intent that seemed to have surpassed the limits of life and death radiated from his body. Sang. With a flash, the little sword saint was the first to step into the building of refinement. The gazes of some geniuses and elites behind were filled with respect. Many knew that the little sword saint was reaching the end of his lifespan and had basically given up on life after entering Xianxia Palace. Follow him. The forces of Sky Sword Pavilion, the Imperials, the Duanmu family, and company carefully followed the little sword saint. Sii. Their feet started to burn after entering the building of refinement. Arg! The high heat made many geniuses jump up and down as they screamed. At this moment in time, those that cultivated the Tao of Fire, the Tao of Ice, or the Tao of Water felt a bit better. The elites that cultivated the Tao of Fire were more in harmony with heat, while those cultivating the Tao of Ice or the Tao of Water could better resist fire. It's too hot here. Even the 13th prince felt hot and unable to resist. Although he had become a king after entering Xianxia Palace, he was of noble birth and never had been in such a situation before. It's too hot. Even emperors would be roasted after staying here for a long time. The half-step kings started to sweat and become uneasy after entering for only a few breaths. Within the building of refinement, the closer one got to the center of the fire crater, the higher the heat. At this moment, they only just entered the building of refinement, so they were at the edge. They weren't even close to the actual furnace. However, most of the broken weapons and materials were close to the crater. Any broken piece or tattered weapon or random material here would cause 3-star and 4-star forces to fight to the death. The god-fallen metal that was casually lying on the ground was something that was sealed and hidden away by the great gone Imperials. However, the most valuable items were the more complete weapons. We're close. The little sword saint had a smile that seemed to have seen through life and death. He was covered by a white sword light as he walked step by step toward the furnace. At this moment in time, the sword aura from the little sword saint made everyone's heart jump. Jiang! The hum of a sword that sounded throughout the soul dimension and across heaven and earth came from the depths of the building of refinement. Everyone's blood and true yuan started to shake. What a terrifying sword aura! The sword's hum froze everyone's footsteps. They felt as if a cold sword had pierced through their hearts. They managed to look over, and they saw a rusty bronze sword stabbed into the ground near the furnace. Everyone was stunned and baffled. This rusty-looking sword looked like trash, but if one looked closely, they would realize that the material of this sword was ancient and definitely not simple. Jiang! The sword that was stabbed into the ground hummed and released a powerful sword Tao aura that slashed through the air and straight into one's soul. Wah! Wah! Some of the geniuses who weren't strong enough immediately coughed out blood and were injured. Plop! Plop! Combined with the heat from the building of refinement, several half-step kings fainted. How? The sacred emperor's sword that the 13th prince owned started to tremble. The humming from that rusty sword made even the sacred emperor's sword feel scared and wary. Even heaven-grade divine weapons aren't able to scare the sacred emperor's sword, and that's just a tattered weapon that's much weaker. The great gone Imperials were stunned. The 8th, 9th, and 13th princes all looked at each other in shock. Even though it wasn't able to use all its strength in the divine illusion dimension, they knew the significance of the sacred emperor's sword. Ancient god sword. That is most likely a tattered ancient god weapon. The 3 princes came to a shocking conclusion, and this conclusion made them even warier. When a treasure was too precious, it was actually a calamity. Ancient god weapons came from the atavistic era, or even the immemorial era. Such strength only appeared in legends. A substandard god weapon appeared several thousand years ago, destroying a 3-star force and slaying 3 sacred lords. That substandard god weapon came from a 4-star power. Sky Suspension Palace. Exclamations sounded from the building of refinement. However, the rusty bronze sword wasn't a substandard god weapon. The aura alone scared the sacred emperor's sword. Outside the building of refinement, the aura of an ancient god weapon. 2 purple-haired figures entered the door to the building of refinement under a layer of silver and purple. Purple-haired demonic duo. Several geniuses and elites that weren't able to withstand the heat were catching some fresh air outside, and they exclaimed with hatred when they saw the duo. However, due to the heat and the aura of the rusty bronze sword, most of the people could barely protect themselves, so no one had the energy or motivation to attack the purple-haired demonic duo in this situation. It could be said that the purple-haired demonic duo came right on time. The little sword saint, who had the strongest battle power, was fully attracted to the tattered ancient god sword and couldn't be distracted. If the little sword saint gains the recognition of the tattered ancient god sword, he will be unparalleled amongst the outsiders. Although the chance of that is low, we have to consider it. The three great Gone princes were discussing what threat the tattered ancient god sword might bring, as well as how to get close to the god-fallen metal and the other materials. At the same time, in front of a dark book room on the other side of Xianxia Palace, those from Sky Suspension Palace were immersed in the ancient books that gave off a starry light. The aura of an ancient god weapon. Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes, and a weird piece of jade on his chest glittered with a pure white light and started to tremble. Although Xianxuan's heart was moved when he sensed the aura of an ancient god weapon, he showed no signs of heading over right away. He first sent this news to senior martial brother Zhuge and the female in apricot robes. Ancient god weapons surpass our level by far too much. Those destined shall get it, so it doesn't matter if we're a bit late. Senior martial brother Zhuge held his fan and gave a smile. Xianxuan also faintly nodded his head in agreement. If they were demigods, they would definitely go straight for the ancient god weapon, but a treasure that was too precious was actually a calamity. Of course, there was another reason: the dark book room they were in already contained fortune. All the books in the book room floated in the air like stars in the night sky. Each one of these books has reached heaven grade, and some have even touched the heavenly divine realm. The ancient god Xianxia marked this book specifically? The geniuses of Sky Suspension Palace fell into their own little book worlds. Each book contained a world, and the knowledge contained within these books was something that even four-star forces dreamt of. Some of these books are comparable to the secret techniques and core inheritances of Sky Suspension Palace, and some have even surpassed the limits of the continent zone. Senior martial brother Zhuge couldn't help but sigh. This book room was actually somewhat open to outsiders. But despite that, the elites of Sky Suspension Palace spent quite a long time to enter. Each book is a world. Don't be greedy. Just choose one or two books, the female in apricot robes warned. When skills reached the level of heaven grade, each of them was comparable to an entire inheritance, and the information contained within was like the limitless ocean. Therefore, the geniuses and elites only chose one or two books that suited them. Absorbing the content of a book was very taxing even for Void God Realm kings, who could remember everything they read. When information was too large, even using a photographic memory to look at it would use a lot of time. There was a silver-armored half-step king youth from Sky Suspension Palace, and a dreamy purple light flashed through his eyes. A purple symbol faintly glowed on the silver-armored youth's forehead. This silver-armored youth was the weakest of the elites from Sky Suspension Palace, and his status was also the lowest. He usually kept silent. He was also the very last person to enter the dark book room. At this moment, the silver-armored youth was acting very strangely. Shwa! He quickly took out an ancient book, and a purple glow appeared in his eyes. A couple dozen breaths later, he took out another starry book. Holy Wicked Technique? It was written by Xianxia. The silver-armored youth paused for a moment. Instead of concentrating on absorbing one or two books like the others, the silver-armored youth had already read dozens of books. Looks like this book room was arranged by the palace's servants. The Holy Wicked Technique is a simple technique created by the owner, but even then, it can be considered a supreme wicked Tao technique in the outside world. The silver-armored youth's eyes twinkled. Under normal circumstances, the other geniuses of Sky Suspension Palace would have realized that the silver-armored youth was acting differently. For example, his mental energy aura was several times stronger than usual. However, at this point in time, everyone was focused on the worlds of the books. Shwa! 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 The silver-armored youth started to flip through other books after finishing the Holy Wicked technique. He flipped through a couple dozen books and seemed to be very tired, so he took out some pills from his interspatial ring. Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao. The female in apricot robes saw that the silver-armored youth was acting amiss and warned him. I suggest you focus on absorbing 1 or 2 books that suit you. That will be more helpful. I understand. The silver-armored youth gave an emotionless reply and started to read through more books. Time passed by slowly, and when the majority of the Sky Suspension Palace geniuses had finished absorbing their first book, the silver-armored youth had finished over 100, and all of them were ones he was interested in. When everyone finished absorbing their second book, the silver-armored youth had finished 200 books. At this moment, the silver-armored youth was extremely tired, so he found a corner, sat down, and ate some spiritual pills. Okay, we'll be leaving in 2 hours, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge said. His eyebrows furrowed when his gaze landed on the silver-armored Deng Chao. But he didn't say anything. Within an underground cellar of Xianxia Palace, Nan Gongshang, this holy wicked technique should be a simplified version of Xie Yang's cultivation technique. Do you think you can cultivate it? Zhao Feng opened his eyes with fatigue. Weird. I managed to learn the holy wicked technique very easily, and now I can use the power of the evil god crystal much better than before. Nan Gongsheng was extremely surprised. How did Zhao Feng suddenly have this holy wicked technique? As I thought, Zhao Feng was now sure that the dark book room was semi-open to the public. At this moment, there were 200 Xieyang books worth of content in Zhao Feng's mind. Many of these Xieyang books would be a top inheritance in a 3-star or 4-star force. A small number of them were even comparable to the Golden Kuan Sacred Lightning Technique and the 5-Elemental Wind Lightning Technique. An extremely small amount even slightly surpassed them. However, for Zhao Feng, the Sacred Lightning Body and the Wind Lightning Technique formed a perfect combination. After all, he already had the foundation of Wind Lightning from his previous life, and he had fused with the power of God Tribulation Lightning, so he had more potential with lightning techniques. Furthermore, most of the Xieyang books were techniques and skills of the Wicked Tao, which weren't suitable for Zhao Feng. Although Zhao Feng wouldn't cultivate these books, they still increased his knowledge and understanding. Zhao Feng had a thought after reading so many books. He could try to alter and improve these techniques and create a secret technique that was perfect for himself. Elsewhere, in front of the building of refinement, Arg, I can't stand it anymore. Several half-step king geniuses and elites ran out from the black metallic door, and their feet were smoking. There were a few already resting geniuses in front of the door, and their feet were scorched black. There was also a small number of people that had fainted and were carried out by other elites. Apart from a small number of powerful Void God Realm Kings, normal geniuses weren't able to last very long in the building of refinement. The competition within the building of refinement at this moment in time was very intense. The person at the very front was still the white-mustached little sword saint from Sky Sword Pavilion. Wang. The aura of the little sword saint's sword became stronger until it burned like the sun. His gaze looked forward, and he conquered the heat under his feet as he slowly approached the rusty bronze sword near the furnace. He didn't even look at the broken pieces or weapons or materials scattered around. Each step he took toward the rusty bronze sword required unimaginable power from his sword Tao. Each and every step he took felt like an entire century to him. The remaining intent and laws on that tattered ancient god sword might allow me to break through. The little sword saint only had this one sword in his heart, while the other kings focused on the legendary minerals and weapon fragments. It wasn't that they didn't want to compete for the ancient god weapon, it was just that they weren't able to. Amongst the groups, the purple-haired demonic duo was extremely eye-catching. Shwa! Whoosh! The 2 purple-haired figures disappeared and reappeared in a corner. Within half a day's time, the purple-haired demonic duo had gone near the furnace 2 or 3 times and obtained many legendary materials and weapon pieces. They were like fish in water. Purple-haired demonic duo. Die! The 13th prince roared in anger as he pulled out a beaming golden sword and slashed toward the 2 purple-haired figures. The strike surged with a supreme imperial power as draconic images shot into the sky. After becoming a king, The sacred emperor's sword that the 13th prince wielded was much stronger. Its power was comparable to an emperor. This sword suppressed all the geniuses and elites present apart from the little sword saint. Watch out! The expressions of the purple-haired demonic duo changed as they quickly retreated. Whoosh! The duo disappeared and reappeared in another corner. But there was a bloody mark on one of their bodies, which quickly recovered under an ice-blue glow. Are you okay? I'm fine. Every time the sacred emperor's sword is drawn, its power will be suppressed by the divine illusion dimension. One of the purple-haired youths let out a breath. If they were in the Great Gone Lord dynasty, the power of the sacred emperor's sword would be doubled since it wasn't restricted by anything. In that scenario, almost no one would be able to rival the 13th prince. What powerful defense! The demonic duo's strength has increased even more. The kings from the Duanmu family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, the Chao family, and company were all shocked. In the exchange just now, the purple-haired demonic duo managed to retreat even from the Imperials, and their method was so stealthy that no one would be able to find them if they retreated. The strength of the demonic duo is increasing very quickly, and they're still stealing the spoils of war from our Duanmu family. Those from the Duanmu family gritted their teeth in hatred. At this moment, the demonic duo was extremely strong as they ran around the battlefield like ghosts. The physical defense of that purple-haired youth was so strong that even an emperor-level attack wasn't able to threaten him. Yufei. The elder in green robes and the male in black turned toward Zhao Yufei. In the clash just now, the purple-haired demonic duo purposely avoided Zhao Yufei. Where do you think you're going? Zhao Yufei roared as she leapt into the air and exchanged a blow with Zhao Feng. Bam! Zhao Yufei was pushed back dozens of yards by an extreme coldness and landed on the ground. A layer of frost appeared on her jade-like skin. Yufei, are you okay? The elites of the Duanmu family quickly protected Zhao Yufei in case the demonic duo kept attacking her. I'm fine, but that isn't Brother Zhao Feng. Zhao Yufei's eyes turned red as she landed on the ground, but she spoke in a confident tone. In the exchange just now, she didn't use her full strength, but the enemy used enough power to try to kill her. In the dark book room of Xianxia Palace, get ready to leave. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge held his fan and spoke with a faint smile. We can try our luck. The ancient god weapon might be destined to be with one of us. Ancient god weapon. The geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace were shocked. That was a weapon that only existed in legends, and such a thing appeared in Xianxia Palace? This news stunned all of them, and the eyes of the silver-armored Deng Chao twinkled, but he wasn't excited or surprised like everyone else. The door to the book room opened, and those from Sky Suspension Palace walked out. The person at the very end was still the silver-armored Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao. Spatial movement. Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao stood in a corner that was a dead angle for vision, and a respectful expression appeared on his face as a ripple of power surged around him. Since the book room was protected by the god's forbidden array, those outside the book room couldn't sense those within the book room very well. Whoosh! Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao reached out, and several pure white lotuses appeared in front of him. The white lotuses contained petals, seeds, and leaves, and their auras weren't normal. Green water sky lotus. Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao revealed a joyful expression as he quickly put the white lotuses into his interspatial ring, then quickly walked out of the dark book room. Although he came out a bit later than everyone else, it didn't raise their suspicions because Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao's status amongst these people was relatively low. Let's go. The geniuses and elites from Sky Suspension Palace went on their way. Wang, the leader with Shenyuan 1, and a piece of jade on his chest sensed something. After the Sky Suspension Palace elites left the dark book room, the room closed, and the power of the god's forbidden array quickly covered it. Shwa! Eventually, a calm male wearing a t-shirt appeared. Although I know how to open this place, I can't open it alone. The t-shirt wearing male took back his hand and put them both behind his back. The three powerhouses of Sky Suspension Palace, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge, Shenyuan 1, and the apricot-robed female, could only open the book room when they combined their strength, and senior martial brother Zhuge in particular knew the actual method to open it. At this moment, the difference between a group and an individual could be felt. However, the male wearing the t-shirt wasn't regretful or sad. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the purple crystal tower in the depths of Xianxia Palace. This purple crystal tower shot up into the sky. It was the tallest and most magnificent building in the palace, and it was located at the very center. However, the pressure radiating from this tower was terrifying and covered all the buildings in the palace. Even kings would cough out blood if they fought back against this force. Sang! Sang! With a flash, the t-shirt-wearing male started to head in a direction different from Sky Suspension Palace. There was a lot of fortune in Xianxia Palace that geniuses from other forces had found. In addition, the geniuses and elites that had entered Xianxia Palace were just a small portion of the total amount. There was still a lot in the other areas of the divine illusion dimension. Within the six-sided building of refinement, Zhao Yufei, that purple-haired demonic duo, is extremely greedy and detestable. They've attacked the Duanmu family, and you're still being tricked by him, the male in black robes said angrily, and everyone's eyebrows furrowed. In the exchange a moment ago, one could obviously see that the purple-haired Zhao Feng had attacked Zhao Yufei with murderous intent. That's not Brother Feng. What you guys are seeing is a fake demonic duo. Zhao Yufei's voice became cold. The Duanmu family's lack of belief made her sad, but reality was right there. Not long ago, one person from the Duanmu family was killed and two were severely injured by the purple-haired demonic duo. Zhao Yufei said that they were a fake demonic duo, but no one believed her. If even those from the Duanmu family didn't believe her, then why would the other forces? Ziziz. With our combined power, the world is ours. The two purple-haired figures flashed throughout the building of refinement and laughed wickedly from time to time. The strongest person was the white-mustached little sword saint, but he was fully attracted by the rusty bronze sword. The ninth prince, Zhao Yufei, and company weren't scared of fighting the demonic duo, but the two of them immediately left after attacking once, and no one could do anything about their physical defense or their escaping skills. Sky Suspension Palace is here. Exclamations sounded from outside the building of refinement. Hearing that, the Imperials, the Duanmu family, the Chao family, and company were half happy and half worried. They were happy that Sky Suspension Palace was here because they believed that they could easily deal with the demonic duo. They were worried because Sky Suspension Palace would probably take all the resources in the building for themselves. Whoosh! 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 20 or so figures quickly approached the building of refinement. The group from Sky Suspension Palace had 5 or 6 Void God Realm Kings, 3 of them having broken through after entering the Divine Illusion Dimension or Xianxia Palace. Ancient God Weapon. The imperial intent of an emperor instantly filled the area when Shen Yuan walked through the door. Void God Realm Emperor. The present half-step kings and kings were stunned as they felt their souls become suppressed. Apart from the little sword saint, no one could compare to Shen Yuan. Whoosh! In just one step, Shen Yuan entered the depths of the crater-like furnace, and he wasn't too far away from the little sword saint. The little sword saint was only comparable or slightly stronger than Shen Yuan in terms of mental energy and intent, but in terms of youth, cultivation, and overall power, Shen Yuan easily suppressed the little sword saint. Jiang. Maybe because of the emperor intent it felt, the rusty bronze sword in front of the furnace released a brilliant beam of sword light, and a cold sword intent instantly filled the building of refinement and caused the entire furnace to become chaotic. Wah! Wah! Plop! The power of the ancient god weapon injured many geniuses, causing some of them to cough out blood and faint. Jiang! The sound of metal clashing sounded as 2 auras no weaker than the rusty bronze sword appeared. A sunset-red curved blade and a black, notched axe awoke from the pile of nearby tattered weapons next to the furnace. The aura of those 2 weapons are more complete and closer to ancient god weapons. Substandard god weapons. Senior martial brother Zhuge's eyes flashed. Substandard god weapons. All of the geniuses' hearts shook. Even if it was broken, an ancient god weapon was too powerful for them. They were legendary items. However, Substandard god weapons were better for the present geniuses and elites since the difficulty of obtaining them would be much lower. Hope appeared in the eyes of the three imperial princes. In the Lord dynasty, substandard god weapons were a forbidden-level power that could shake and change the situation of the imperial family and the entire world of cultivation at this moment. Two relatively complete substandard god weapons appeared in front of the furnace. One was a curved blade. Although the blade was bent back a bit, it wasn't very damaged. There were a few holes on the notched axe. Who knew what kind of battle these two substandard god weapons had gone through for them to be damaged? Wang, Jiang, Jiang, Jiang. The three peerless weapons, the rusty bronze sword, the curved blade, and the notched axe, all released a powerful force that swept across the entire area. At this moment in time, terrifying sceneries appeared in the building of refinement. They entered the soul and had the ability to disturb reality and space itself. The blurred images summoned by the ancient god weapon and the substandard god weapons were like the images from a little world. Tang, tang, tang. Even some kings were pushed back by this force. Anyone that isn't a king, retreat. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge was the first to give the order. Half-step kings, retreat from the building of refinement for now. The great Gone Imperials also gave the order. At this moment, the three peerless weapons awoke, and the aura they casually radiated could kill all lifeforms below the king level. Only Void God Realm kings were able to withstand them. Amongst the outsiders, Sky Suspension Palace and the Imperials had the majority of Void God Realms. The Sky Suspension Palace had 6 Void God Realms, including a Void God Realm Emperor. The Great Gone Imperials had the 3 princes, Luo Zun, the Wrinkled Elder, and a new king for a total of 6 Void God Realms as well. These two sides had the biggest advantage in the fight for the peerless weapons. Where did the purple-haired demonic duo go? The geniuses from the Imperials, the Duanmu family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and company instinctively looked around. They had to keep their guard up against the purple-haired demonic duo because they would always attack at the critical moment. In reality, after Sky Suspension Palace appeared, the purple-haired demonic duo had never reappeared. At the same time, on a big tree in a courtyard near the building of refinement, 2 purple-haired figures flashed. Lord Black Serpent Dragon, are you sure that Xiaofeng will participate in the fight in the building of refinement? Z's, if that's the case, these humans will have a strong internal conflict. The 2 purple-haired figures spoke cunningly. Humph, that Xiaofeng is already participating in it. A cold voice that seemed to reign supreme sounded in the duo's ears. Already participating? Hearing that, the 2 purple-haired figures were puzzled. They hadn't seen any signs of the true purple-haired demonic duo. The 2 purple-haired figures didn't dare to enter the building of refinement since they were waiting for the true demonic duo. At a certain moment, a surge of king intent rose from a silver-armored youth who was sitting outside the building of refinement. The aura of his soul seemed to become complete, and the disturbance raised the attention of other nearby half-step kings. A king! Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao became a king? Some geniuses and elites from Sky Suspension Palace were dazed, and the half-step kings of other forces revealed envious looks. The person that just broke through was the silver-armored spy in Sky Suspension Palace, Deng Chao. Thank you, Master. Without your help, I wouldn't have broken through to the Void God realm so quickly. Gratitude and respect appeared in Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's eyes. No one realized that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao had eaten the petals and seeds of 2 green water sky lotuses not long ago. If some other half-step king had 2 green water sky lotuses, they would have a 40 to 50% chance of successfully becoming a king. If there was an emperor intent helping them, then the chance of success would become even higher. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao had both of those. He came from a 4-star superpower, Sky Suspension Palace, and being able to become a member of this elite group meant that his talent was comparable to the core disciples of some 3-star forces. Congratulations, Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, on becoming a king. The other geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace had complex emotions as they squeezed out a smile and came over to congratulate him. Although the weakest of the elites were already half-step kings, no one would have thought that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, who was the weakest of the weak, the least experienced, and had the lowest status, would be able to break through at this critical moment. Ha ha ha, this is a great chance. Now that I'm a king, we should charge forward. Deng Chao gave a long laugh as he quickly consolidated his foundation and moved forward. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao. The other geniuses and elites from Sky Suspension Palace were surprised as they watched the silver-armored Deng Chao charge into the building of refinement. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, you just broke through and still need to consolidate your foundation. No one would have thought that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao would be so impatient to enter the building of refinement. Only Void God Realm Kings could stand their ground in the building of refinement right now. The three peerless weapons, the rusty bronze sword, the curved blade, and the notched axe, released a terrifying aura that could create phantom sceneries. A green sword glow rippled from the rusty bronze sword and gave off an immortal and desolate aura. Every time it hummed, space seemed to twist and turn. Even though these images in the air were created by the mere remnant intents of the three peerless weapons, even Xianxia didn't dare to clash against them head-on. What terrifying auras and sceneries! Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao felt his breathing become suppressed after entering the building of refinement. He found a safe spot and watched quietly with wariness. He was in a relatively far-away spot where he would help the others. The kings of Sky Suspension Palace understood and accepted what Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao did. After all, he had only just broken through to the Void God realm. Apart from the ancient god weapon, there's also two substandard god weapons. Let's see what else is in the depths of the building of refinement. A voice sounded in Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's mind. Understood, Master. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao replied respectfully as he inspected the depths of the building of refinement. At this moment, a faint purple glow flickered in his eyes. Deng Chao felt that his sight became more than 10 times better, and he managed to faintly see a tattered weapon stand made of a black metal. It was located past the eye-catching hot furnace. There were several slumbering auras on the tattered weapon stand, which had several items that weren't very eye-catching sitting on it. An arm guard, shield, 3 arrows, and a spade. Zhao Feng revealed a weird look. The items on the weapon stand were relatively complete, but they seemed to be very normal. Since he was using Deng Chao's senses, Zhao Feng didn't need to use his Eye of Heaven, which required a lot of energy. He could spy on Sky Suspension Palace as well as see what was happening in the building of refinement anytime he wanted. Being a 4-star power, the strength of Sky Suspension Palace was amongst the top, especially after Xianxia became an emperor. It could be said that every action and movement Sky Suspension Palace made would affect the entire balance in Xianxia Palace. One could understand this from the fact that the fake purple-haired demonic duo ran away before the Sky Suspension Palace group even arrived. Even Zhao Feng was wary of Sky Suspension Palace, which is why he put a spy in the group from the Sky Suspension Palace. Deng Chao was the last to enter the dark book room, and Zhao Feng's Eye of Heaven used that chance to put a dark heart seal on him. Deng Chao was only a half-step king back then, so he had no chance at all against Zhao Feng's Eye of Heaven. Zhao Feng's Dark Heart Seal was even better than before. In the past, the Dark Heart Seal would limit the target's potential when he used it, but after the pursuit of death and his recultivation, Zhao Feng started to perfect the Dark Heart Seal. The restriction on potential wasn't as strong as before. Zhao Feng even helped Deng Chao break through to the Void God realm, resulting in the current situation. At this moment, Zhao Feng could share Deng Chao's sight within the building of refinement. Using his now-perfected version of the Dark Heart Seal, Zhao Feng could even send some of his eye bloodline power over and use part of the God's Spiritual Eyes abilities. Of course, this transfer of energy meant that some of the God's Spiritual Eyes abilities would be lost in the process, but it would be enough to handle most situations. Zhao Feng was able to interfere in the fight directly even though he wasn't in the building of refinement. Zhao Feng, when will we take action? Nan Gongsheng was somewhat impatient. He had been cultivating the Holy Wicked technique for a while and could now use the power of the Evil God Crystal much better than before. His cultivation was at the late stages of the Void God realm, but his true yuan was stronger than others of the same cultivation due to the Evil God Crystal merging with his true yuan. It's about time. Zhao Feng closed his eyes and looked through Deng Chao's. The underground cellar that the duo was in wasn't very far away from the building of refinement. Meow meow. The little thieving cat suddenly threw some old bronze coins, causing them to clatter. Okay. Zhao Feng nodded his head. Meow. With a flash of silver and gray, the little thieving cat disappeared from the underground cellar. On a big tree near the building of refinement. Why hasn't the purple-haired demonic duo taken action yet? Two purple-haired figures were getting impatient. They had successfully managed to offend all the humans in the guise of the purple-haired demonic duo. So, as long as the real purple-haired demonic duo appeared, chaos would break out amongst the humans. However, the purple-haired demonic duo hadn't appeared even after such a long time. The true purple-haired demonic duo has managed to get rid of my marks of destruction. But there's a person that the purple-haired demonic duo is controlling who is within my senses. The cold voice of the black serpent dragon sounded out of nowhere. What? Those two brats managed to get rid of their marks of destruction? The expressions of the two purple-haired figures changed dramatically, and they couldn't help but start to think in shock. If the purple-haired demonic duo has a way to get rid of the mark of destruction, then can we also do it? There was a way out, and if they had to, they would even team up with the purple-haired demonic duo. Humph, the marks of destruction on you two have been especially strengthened. Even a demigod would find it hard to resolve them. The words of the black serpent dragon shattered their thoughts, and their hearts went cold. It looked like they had no way out. The two of you both have true dragon bloodlines, so I won't treat you badly if you successfully complete the plan. Becoming a slave of the destruction dragon race and making the world tremble is a glory for countless puny and weak races. The black serpent dragon gave a smile. Those two brats are very patient. Do we need to enter the building of refinement under a new identity? The purple-haired youth who looked like Zhao Feng suggested. That's right. Through the senses of this Deng Chao, I found a very useful and complete substandard god weapon, the misty spatial world. The black serpent dragon said in a deep tone. Substandard god weapon, misty spatial world? The two purple-haired figures' hearts shook when they heard this. They had heard of the legendary item known as a substandard god weapon. The misty spatial world is a support-type weapon, and the important part is that it doesn't have a high requirement of the user. You can use it as long as you get it. The black serpent dragon paused for a moment. Illusionist dragon, quickly! The expression of the other purple-haired youth became serious. Whoosh! The youth who looked like Nan Gongsheng waved his hand. Shwa! With a flash, the fake purple-haired demonic duo turned into two non-human males. One was a tall male with blue scales, the blue serpent king Wei Jing. The other non-human male had a pair of horns and beady green eyes. His skin was dark green. Switch! With a flash, Wei Jing and beady green eyes turned into a youth in blue robes and a female in a green dress. The aura of the girl wearing the green dress was extremely pleasant and elegant, and they were both at the Void God realm. Z's, as expected of the genius ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings, your 1,000 changes illusionist dragon bloodline is so powerful. The youth in blue robes nodded his head in satisfaction. Beady green eyes had the bloodline of 1,000 changes illusionist dragon, which could imitate and change according to the environment. The 1,000 changes illusionist dragon could imitate anything it saw, including animate and inanimate objects, such as rocks, grass, and insect corpses. Of course, the imitation was just an image. They didn't actually become that thing and gain its abilities. However, this was a bloodline technique that could even hide from divine senses. Because the Blue Serpent King was always together with beady green eyes, the latter's bloodline power covered him as well. Let's go! The Blue Serpent King and beady green eyes quickly flew into the building of refinement. Those two humans look unfamiliar. Some of the experts resting outside the building of refinement revealed weird expressions, but too many forces had entered the divine illusion dimension. It wasn't rare to see kings that had come from other places in the Lord dynasty since it was so big. Just like that, the Blue Serpent King and beady green eyes walked straight into the building of refinement. The addition of these two human kings didn't attract the attention of any other kings in the building of refinement. Sang! Sang! The blue-robed king and the girl in green robes duo went around the three peerless weapons in the air and tried to go past them. However, on this path, the duo had to face the extreme heat of the furnace. Normal kings would be roasted if they approached the furnace. Do those two people want to die? Some of the kings present revealed mocking or sympathetic expressions, while the other kings put their sights on the scattered weapons and materials on the ground. Any one of these ores or weapons were immeasurably value. The 3-star or 4-star forces behind them could use them well. I see the weapon stand. The Blue Serpent King duo resisted the extreme heat and looked toward the other side of the furnace. Wang. An icy blue mist surrounded the duo and helped resist the heat. What's that weird bloodline? Even an emperor's resistance would only be at that level. Shenyuan Wen and senior martial brother Zhuge of Sky Suspension Palace looked over. What was even more incredible was that the ice blue mist allowed the duo to hover over the ground. It wasn't quite flying, but one had to know that Xianxia Palace heavily restricted flying. Normal kings could only fly for a brief moment. This meant that the duo didn't need to face as much heat because at least half of the heat came from the ground. Look at it closely. The arm guard on the weapon stand is a substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World. The arrows are god-slaying arrows, and the shield is the Golden Pond Shield. The Black Serpent Dragon's voice, which seemed to rule over the world, appeared in the minds of the Blue Serpent King duo. The Blue Serpent King duo's actions caught the attention of all the other kings. The duo had gone around the three peerless weapons, and the extreme heat around that part of the furnace was enough to burn normal kings into ashes. Maybe Shenyuan Wen and the Little Sword Saint had the ability to withstand the heat there, but they were fully attracted to the three peerless weapons. Senior martial brother Zhuge, the girl in apricot robes, the ninth prince, and some others were trying to obtain the curved blade while the notched axe was being targeted by the Imperial Group, Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, and some other forces. Some of the weaker kings set their sights lower and tried to obtain some of the scattered weapon pieces and materials. I feel a familiar bloodline and true Yuan undulation from that blue-robed youth. Zhao Yufei's eyes twinkled as she gave the Blue Serpent King an extra glance. But since the Blue Serpent King had now turned into a human by the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon bloodline ability, his bloodline and cultivation technique auras were different. The strength of those two is only below that of martial brother Shenyuan. They probably have something special in mind, senior martial brother Zhuge said. He gave up on the curved blade and approached the Blue Serpent Dragon duo as a mysterious flame glowed around him. Senior martial brother Zhuge instinctively felt that these two were suspicious or had some sort of secret. That Zhuge Yun seems to be suspicious of us. He's indeed worthy of being the brain of Sky Suspension Palace. Beady Green Eyes privately messaged. It's indeed slightly troublesome, but just him alone isn't enough to threaten us. The Blue Serpent King had an emotionless expression. The only ones he was truly wary of in the six-sided building of refinement were Shenyuan Wen and the Little Sword Saint. After that came Zhao Yufei from the Duanmu family. Yufei, with your strength, you might be able to obtain a substandard god weapon for the Duanmu family. The elder in green robes suggested. Although the Duanmu family had 3 kings, the only one that was actually useful was Zhao Yufei. The elder in green robes cultivated the element of wood and was countered by the flames inside the furnace, while the other king had only just broken through and was too weak. Meow meow. Before Zhao Yufei could respond, a silver-gray streak of light appeared from behind. Little thieving cat? Zhao Yufei was overjoyed as she glanced at a small silver-gray cat that suddenly appeared on her shoulder. The little thieving cat was never far from Zhao Feng. Since the cat had appeared, that meant that Zhao Feng himself wasn't far away. Some of the nearby kings revealed weird expressions as they looked over. Meow meow. The little thieving cat waved its paws. You mean? Zhao Yufei knew what the little thieving cat was saying and couldn't help but turn toward the direction of the Blue Serpent King duo. A layer of purple light then started to glow around her body as she took the little thieving cat and chased after the Blue Serpent King duo. Yufei. The green-robed elder's expression changed. The area that the Blue Serpent King and green beady eyes were located was extremely hot. Even emperors would be wary of the heat. Whoosh! At the same time, The flames around Senior Martial Brother Zhuge allowed him to float in the air and not touch the ground with his feet. We're almost there. The substandard god weapons. Misty spatial world. God-slaying arrows. Golden pond shield. The blue serpent kings and green beady eyes' heart rates increased as their gazes locked on to the armguard misty spatial world. The substandard god-level misty spatial world could be used right away as long as they obtained it, which could increase their strength dramatically in an instant. In comparison, the god-slaying arrows, the golden pond shield, and the spade weren't of much use to the duo. However, the tattered weapon stand was located on the other side of the crater, and the heat became stronger the further one went. Could dramatically threaten even Void God Realm Emperors. The ice-blue mist around the Blue Serpent King duo started to boil as the cold aura started to heat up. So hot! The duo had to face the terrifying heat. The Blue Serpent King was slightly better off since he had the Ice Serpent Emperor bloodline, which was ranked in the top 10 among Imperial Dao bloodlines, so the strength of his body was close to the true dragon race. The natural inborn talent of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon outside was even stronger than normal true dragons. However, while the Thousand Changes Illusionist Dragon was also a dragon bloodline, beady green eyes specialized in illusions, so his body was relatively weaker. Wei Jing. I can't hold it for much longer. Sweat poured down beady green eyes' face as he tried to sustain the illusion. Despite that, they were both able to withstand the heat much better than the approaching Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. The bodies of those two humans are so strong that they don't seem like humans anymore. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's eyes became sharp. He couldn't get too close because his body and resistance to fire wasn't as strong as the combined forces of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes Illusionist Dragon Man. Zhao Yufei, we should work together. The items on that weapon stand definitely aren't normal. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge messaged privately and prepared to pincer attack the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes Illusionist Dragon Man. Okay. Zhao Yufei agreed and maintained a certain distance. Her eyebrows furrowed due to the heat. Maintain the illusion. The Blue Serpent King suddenly went forward several yards and had to face a heat that even normal emperors couldn't withstand. At this instant, blue scales appeared under the ice-blue mist and gave off a terrifying coldness that belonged to the Ice Serpent Emperor bloodline. If it wasn't for the fact that beady green eyes was covering him, the power of the Blue Serpent King's bloodline would shock everyone present. In an instant, the Blue Serpent King's battle power was enough to challenge emperors. By relying on his body, bloodline, and heat resistance, he was actually slightly stronger than normal emperors. Come! The Blue Serpent King reached out, and an ice-blue dragon tendon shot out. Change! Beady green eyes quickly waved his hand and turned the dragon tendon into a scarlet golden chain. Wait a second. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's eyes shone. That scarlet golden chain is releasing a faint icy undulation. Ding! The ice-blue crystal dragon tendon that shot out from the Blue Serpent King landed on the armguard on the weapon stand. Substandard God Weapon Misty Spatial World. The Blue Serpent King's and beady green eyes' heartbeats sped up, perhaps because this was their only chance to grab it before they were roasted by the furnace. However, right at this moment, the unexpected happened. Meow. With a flash of silver and gray, a little cat landed on the ice-blue crystal dragon tendon that was extending from the Blue Serpent King. Of course, in the eyes of everyone watching, it was a scarlet golden chain, not a dragon tendon. Little thieving cat. Zhao Yufei's expression changed dramatically as she exclaimed. The ice-blue crystal tendon was even closer to the heat than the Blue Serpent King. Even Zhao Yufei wouldn't dare to set step into such close range. Shoo! Steam and hot air started to rise the instant the little thieving cat landed on the ice-blue crystal dragon tendon. Under normal circumstances, the extreme cold of the ice-blue crystal dragon tendon would form a layer of frost on its surface and turn the little thieving cat into an ice cat. But at the moment, the environmental heat present far surpassed the dragon tendon's cold. This meant that the little thieving cat had a layer of protection. Meow meow. The dark golden chain on the little thieving cat's neck turned into an agile dark golden dragon snake whip and shot toward the other side of the weapon stand. Please don't do anything. The Blue Serpent King's heart had risen to his throat as he prayed. If the little thieving cat stopped them, then the Blue Serpent King's perfect plan would fail, which meant that he would be destined to miss the misty spatial world. Once he failed, he would need to go back outside to rest since he wasn't able to withstand the heat. Little cat, please, don't do anything. Beady Green Eyes also started to sweat, but luckily, the little thieving cat didn't do anything to stop them after landing on the dragon tendon, and it also wasn't targeting the arm-guard misty spatial world. Meow. The little thieving cat's dark golden dragon snake whip landed perfectly on one of the items. Eh? Beady Green Eyes and the approaching senior martial brother Zhuge were shocked. The item that the little thieving cat's whip had wrapped around was the strange spade. The aura of this spade was the most silent, and it didn't have the aura of a substandard god weapon at all. Success! The Blue Serpent King was overjoyed as he pulled back the dragon tendon with the arm guard in tow. Meow meow. The next instant, the little thieving cat also managed to obtain its spade. The Blue Serpent King paused and realized that something was off. That cat used that blue-robed youth's chain as a place to stand for protection from the heat, so it could take an item. Senior martial brother Zhuge's expression was extremely colorful, and he couldn't help but cheer in secret for this cat's use of another's force. Without the Blue Serpent King's chair, even emperors wouldn't be able to retreat unharmed after coming so close to the heat. Damn it! I was used by this cat. The Blue Serpent King's face twitched as he understood what happened, but he couldn't withstand the heat any longer. Meow! With a flash of silver-gray light, the little cat disappeared. Retreat! The Blue Serpent King and Beady Green Eyes gathered together, but they were suddenly pincer-attacked by Zhao Yufei and senior martial brother Zhuge. Humph! Blue Serpent King, Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. Get back here! Senior martial brother Zhuge roared, and the Blue Serpent King duo's hearts shook as their expressions changed dramatically. Senior martial brother Zhuge had seen through their identities. Hee, it's indeed you two. Everyone, stop these two non-human thieves. Senior martial brother Zhuge had a playful expression, while anger and surprise filled the Blue Serpent King duo. Senior martial brother Zhuge tricked them. It was obvious that he was only guessing about their identities. Fuck off! The Blue Serpent King roared with anger as he leapt into the air, and a blue-scaled dragon claw summoned a wave of icy rain that covered senior martial brother Zhuge. Mystic Machine Fire Shield. Senior martial brother Zhuge retreated as he formed a formation with his hands and created a flaming barrier made of countless tadpole flames. Wang Hu. The Mystic Machine Fire Shield used the flames around the crater to become stronger, so it was twice as strong as usual. Senior martial brother Zhuge's secret technique was able to utilize the power around them to the fullest extent. Boom! The Blue Serpent King's powerful blow was only able to force senior martial brother Zhuge back a couple steps, and he wasn't even injured. At the same time, a shout came from the other side as Zhao Yufei clashed with the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. Go! The image of a dark green illusory dragon roared behind the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon's back. Wang. The illusory dragon phantom released a multicolored transparent light that could seep into the soul. That's... Zhao Yufei's mind wavered. The illusory dragon created a powerful illusion that had a similar effect to Zhao Feng's illusion Maze Domain. At this instant, Zhao Yufei's senses were disturbed and became chaotic. Yufei, watch out! The Thousand Changes illusionist dragon is ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings, only below Shenyuan 1 and the Blue Serpent King. The green-robed elder's heart rose to his throat. Yufei, watch out! The Thousand Changes illusionist dragon is ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings, only below Shenyuan 1 and the Blue Serpent King. The green-robed elder couldn't help but warn. Beady Green Eyes had a rare illusion-based bloodline that could release powerful illusion Dao attacks. It could be said that the bloodline of the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon contained a unique Dao of illusion domain unto itself. In the exchange just now, Zhao Yufei's senses were disrupted. The attack contained illusions that twisted the surroundings and environment. This is the Zhao family? Zhao Yufei's heart shook. The person in front of her smiled and started to become blurry as a decisive and hard-working youth appeared. This youth was the young Zhao Feng in her memories. The change wasn't just the environment. Zhao Yufei herself had turned into a young girl. The memory of a young boy and girl sparring with each other in the courtyard seemed to replay through her mind. Pa! Zhao Yufei exchanged a blow with the young Zhao Feng opposite her. She groaned and retreated a few steps. She was at a disadvantage. Although the difference in strength between them wasn't very big, the young Zhao Feng opposite her had the upper hand. It wasn't just Zhao Yufei that saw this. Even in the eyes of those watching, Zhao Yufei and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon turned into a young Zhao Yufei and Zhao Feng. Even the surroundings turned into the courtyard of the Zhao family from Sun Feather City. All of these changes were caused by the Tao of illusion mixing reality and illusions together. Yufei, the green-robed elder and company from the Duanmu family, couldn't help but exclaim. The direction that Zhao Yufei was being forced to retreat was the direction of the flaming crater. Even an emperor wouldn't be able to survive if they fell directly into the furnace. Pong! Bam! Bam! The Thousand Changes illusionist Dragon Man and Zhao Yufei exchanged dozens of blows as the illusions twisted the surroundings and altered everyone's senses. Zhao Yufei was being pushed back toward the crater step by step. Brother Zhao Feng. Zhao Yufei's eyes became misty, and she had a complex expression as she seemed to remember the memories of the past. Die! The Thousand Changes illusionist dragon laughed coldly as a multicolored wave of light surged from his fist and smashed toward Zhao Yufei's charming face. Unfortunately, you aren't capable. A cold light flashed through the eyes of the pretty girl in purple. A strong surge of killing intent radiated from Zhao Yufei's body. Wang. Zhao Yufei's skin instantly became crystal-like as she gave off a magnificent glow of purple light. The power from her bloodline made all the elites within the building of refinement shake. At this moment in time, both kings and emperors alike felt their techniques and power tremble. Some of it was even lost. What's going on? The emperor-level True Yuan around Shen Yuan Wen's body started to shake. Bam! A non-human male in dark green light was pushed back dozens of yards with a wave of Zhao Yufei's hand, and blood leaked from his mouth. The illusions in Zhao Yufei's vision faded. As expected of the owner of a spiritual race bloodline, the non-human male squinted his pair of beady green eyes as he wiped the blood from his mouth, and he used the force of her attack to flip through the air and meet up with Wei Jing. In the exchange just now, Zhao Yufei used the natural inborn power of her spiritual race bloodline and managed to injure the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon, who was ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings. Of course, since the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon cultivated the Tao of illusions, his ability to fight in a head-on clash was much weaker than the Blue Serpent King, who was ranked 9th. Retreat! The Thousand Changes illusionist dragon and the Blue Serpent King disappeared after they reunited. Quickly, block the doorway. That's the stealthy escaping ability of the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's expression changed slightly, and a pair of sharp white lights shot out from his eyes, but he could only see a faint image. Only eye bloodlines as strong as Ji-Lan's purple star eyes could counter the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon stealth technique. Unfortunately, the Ji family hadn't entered the building of refinement, and no one else here had a strong enough eye bloodline. In reality, the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon didn't actually have any spatial abilities, but he could create certain sceneries and certain auras. This was why they were able to pretend to be the purple-haired demonic duo and acted out so well. How dare you pretend to be the purple-haired demonic duo? I won't forgive you. Anger appeared on Zhao Yufei's face as she used the senses of her spiritual race bloodline to the maximum. She caught a faint aura, which she then chased after. However, the only people truly pursuing them were Zhao Yufei and Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. The other kings were unable to even see where the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon had gone. Shen Yuan 1 and the Little Sword Saint could, but the competition for the rusty bronze sword had entered the final stages. A bright sword light surrounded the Little Sword Saint that was as bright as the sun. A sword intent that seemed to have forgotten the concepts of life and death appeared in his eyes. Every step he took meant that he was giving himself no way out. The Little Sword Saint showed no signs of retreat even against the powerful aura of the ancient god sword. Jiang! The rusty bronze sword in the air released a bright flash of green swordlight alongside an ancient, cold sword intent straight toward the little sword saint. Wah! The little sword saint spat out a mouthful of blood as he surrounded himself in sword light. Senior sword saint. The cold girl in black robes from Sky Sword Pavilion couldn't help but exclaim. If the heavens want me to die, then so be it. The little sword saint roared as the brilliant sword light around him shattered against the rusty bronze sword. This attack seemed to cut away all his energy and life force. The white-mustached little sword saint could feel his true yuan and life force start to wither. His skin became dry and old. From body to sword, the little sword saint suddenly started to burn as he transformed into a sword beam and charged toward the ancient god-level rusty bronze sword. At this moment in time, the entire building of refinement was covered by a bright sword light. Even the flames in the crater seemed to be faint in contrast. Complex and respectful emotions appeared on Shenyuan Wen's face. What a terrifying power of the Sword Dao. That move can probably kill emperors instantly and even threaten mystic light realm's sacred lords. The escaping Blue Serpent King and Thousand Changes illusionist dragon felt their hearts shake. The aura of that Sword Dao attack scared them. The only thing left behind was a sword light that covered the entire furnace. This sword light contained the little sword saint's understanding of the Sword Dao, and he used his life to activate it. Jiang. The rusty bronze sword released a glow of green sword light that caused space itself to become chaotic as it created an endless world. Boom! The sword light that the little sword saint had turned into pierced through the world and caused space itself to twist and turn. Time seemed to stop, and the bright sword beam that covered the little sword saint seemed to merge with the sword beam from the ancient god weapon until they eventually formed an equilibrium. Looking at it, it seemed as if two divine swords were absorbing each other in the air, and one of these swords was the little sword saint. Who? The kings within the building of refinement looked at the weirdly balanced state in shock. Any mistake would mean the little sword saint's death. At the same time, Zhao Yufei and senior martial brother Zhuge followed the tracks and reached the door to the building of refinement. Block the entrance. A handful of kings, including two from the Duanmu family as well as junior martial brother Deng Chao, had gathered at the door. Boom! The magnificent powers of 6 kings gathered into one spatial domain and formed a 5-colored barrier. This combined resistance was enough to stall even an emperor for a while. Boom! Bam! Bam! An ice serpent dragon with blue scales charged over alongside a terrifying icy rain, and its icy dragon claw smashed onto the 5-colored barrier. Boom! The 5-colored barrier that the 6 kings formed together became a lot dimmer. It would break after 1 or 2 more blows, but that still gave the other experts time. Don't let those 2 non-humans escape. Some resting half-step kings all gathered at the entrance and joined the 6 kings. Mystic Machine Secret Formation. Senior martial brother Zhuge expanded the fan in his hand, and it flew into the air, releasing a wave of silver lightning chains that wrapped around the blue serpent dragon duo. Whoosh! Boom! At the same time, there was a powerful surge of yuan qi as a purple meteor charged over from behind. The true yuan and bloodlines of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon both shook as the force smashed over. A shout came from the purple light, and one could faintly see a goddess in purple. Get back here! The girl in purple lightly pressed her hand down, and a materialized purple dimension appeared alongside a surge of magnificent force above the Blue Serpent King duo. Little world. The duo's expressions changed dramatically. At this point in time, the 2 non-humans were surrounded by kings and were being attacked from both directions. Zhao Yufei and senior martial brother Zhuge were both comparable to at least the top 20 of the Imperial Genius rankings, and perhaps even the top 10. Once they dragged this fight out, the Blue Serpent King duo would be attacked by all the kings and half-step kings. Right as the duo were in serious danger and becoming fatigued from dealing with the attacks, retards, use the power of the substandard god weapon. A cold voice sounded in their ears, and a misty spatial image covered the duo as soon as the voice spoke. Shua! This mystic world pushed away Zhao Yufei's little world. The kings and half-step kings near the entrance were covered by the misty dimension and instantly became dizzy. Watch out! That's the substandard god weapon. The misty spatial world contains its own little world. It also has a weird spatial ability. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge exclaimed. Shua! The misty dimension suddenly started to contract and transform into a flow of white mist that became smaller and smaller until it just evaporated into nothing, and everyone else could only look on. That is the power of a substandard god weapon. The present half-step kings and kings were shaken back into reality. Follow them. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's divine sense caught a ball of white mist that had just formed in a forest far away. Haha, with the misty spatial world, we aren't scared of numbers anymore. Even an emperor or two can't do anything to us. The Blue Serpent King duo was revealed in the mist. They had disdainful expressions towards Senior Martial Brother Zhuge and company that were pursuing after them, and they were even considering whether or not they should charge back and fight. However, right at this moment, a voice sounded from a big tree opposite them. You two were indeed able to escape. Looks like it was worth it to wait here. Who's there? The Blue Serpent King and company were shocked as they glanced toward a purple-haired youth with closed eyes sitting on a big tree opposite them, in front of the entrance to the six-sided building of refinement. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon have obtained a substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World. Those two non-humans managed to steal a substandard god weapon under everyone's noses. The 6 kings and 30 or so half-step kings were stunned, and they felt angry and ashamed. After all, everyone within the building of refinement was a human elite, but 2 non-human beings managed to escape even after being surrounded by all of them. Follow them. Some of the kings and half-step kings chased after them. At the very front was Zhao Yufei and Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. However, amongst the group, Junior Martial Brother Deng Chao didn't chase after them. Understood, Master. Junior Martial Brother Zhuge turned around and returned to the building of refinement, continuing to monitor the situation while the remaining kings and half-step kings had gone after the duo. The kings from the Duanmu family, the Chao family, and Grand Duke Yuan's palace had all exited the building. Amongst the group was a thick-eyebrowed male who had arrived not long ago. This was a genius from the 3-star Earth Spirit Hall, Gu Chaoji, who Zhao Feng had met before in the underground city. Gu Chaoji only took 4 half-step kings with him when he entered Xianxia Palace, and the second they got near it, they were caught by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Substandard god weapon. I didn't expect such a peerless treasure to appear in Xianxia Palace. Gu Chaoji was extremely excited. Just seeing a substandard god weapon in real life a single time was a dream for many people. Let's go check it out. Gu Chaoji didn't have too much hope, but there was still a small bit of expectation. After all, substandard god weapons and ancient god weapons were only obtained by those destined to have them. Sang, sang, sang. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge, Zhao Yufei, and the other kings and half-step kings went in the direction of the forest. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge discovered that the Blue Serpent King duo stopped after appearing at the forest. Within the forest, you two were indeed able to escape. Looks like it was worth it to wait here. Surprise appeared on the Blue Serpent King's and Thousand Changes illusionist dragon's faces as they looked toward the purple-haired youth sitting on a big tree. However, when they saw that this youth was just a great origin core realm, even though the youth was one of the purple-haired demonic duo, they roared with disdainful laughter. The Blue Serpent King duo's confidence increased dramatically after obtaining the substandard god-level Misty Spatial World. So many experts and enemies had tried to stop them a moment ago, but they still managed to escape. Now they were just facing a single youth. The Blue Serpent King was even thinking about whether or not they should toy with the human geniuses by taking advantage of the Misty Spatial World. They might even be able to charge back and obtain another substandard god weapon, or even an ancient god weapon. Ha 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 ha. Purple-haired brat. You managed to get lucky last time, and now you come right to us? You seem to think you've lived too long. The Blue Serpent King roared as his powerful bloodline created a layer of frost on the trees nearby. Although there were signs of people still chasing after them, the Blue Serpent King wasn't scared. He glanced at the substandard god weapon on his arm and felt extremely confident. With this substandard god weapon, it was the same as having a powerful space-type little world. Brother Feng. The expression of Zhao Yufei, who was heading toward the direction of the forest, changed. She knew how terrifying the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon were. Their combined strength could easily fight multiple kings, and obtaining the substandard god weapon was like adding wings to a tiger. Is that Zhao Feng? Guochaoji's eyes bulged out. It's one of the purple-haired demonic duo Zhao Feng. The kings and half-step kings from the Duanmu family, the Chao family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and the other forces also recognized Zhao Feng. This youth wasn't even a void god realm yet, and he was actually facing the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon at the same time. Everyone couldn't help but sweat for him. For the two of you, it all ends here. At this moment, the eyes of the purple-haired youth slowly opened. At this instant, the Blue Serpent King duo and some of the kings behind them felt their hearts shake. Maybe because of how confidently the youth spoke, or maybe the way he just opened his eyes as if he had been waiting here for a long time already. The youth spoke to the powerful Blue Serpent King duo so casually. The other member of the purple-haired demonic duo, Nan Gongsheng, appeared, but he showed no signs of doing anything. Zhao Feng, can you really fight these two guys alone? Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but message. After all, he had seen the duo escape from that giant group of kings. But before he even finished his sentence, the unexpected happened. Gaze of the god eye. A strong surge of purple eye bloodline power shot out from the sitting youth's left eye. At this moment, a limitless whirlpool akin to a purple abyss of illusions appeared in his left eye, creating a forbidden power that covered everything the youth looked at. You two retards, run! The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's voice sounded in the Blue Serpent King duo's ears, but its warning was too late. How? The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon felt a coldness in their souls, as if they had been restrained and started to leave their control. Their hearts shook as they revealed looks of fear, and they tried to struggle. The left eye of the purple-haired youth started to expand, and a forbidden force that could suck out their souls covered them. This forbidden power was like a god. It couldn't be stopped. What? Sweat poured down the duo's backs as fear and panic spread across their eyes. It seemed like, no matter what they did, they weren't able to stop their souls from being sucked out. Oh my god! The hearts of some of the arriving experts and elites shook. When they looked at Zhao Feng's left eye, their bodies went cold, and their souls showed signs of floating away. What a terrifying forbidden eye bloodline technique. If Jilan was here, Chao Yun felt unable to breathe, and his heart thumped. Two geniuses ranked within the top 10 on the Imperial Genius rankings were full of fear as they struggled in despair against Zhao Feng's forbidden eye bloodline technique. That Zhao Feng, how can he? Gu Chaoji exclaimed. Even senior martial brother Zhuge's expression, who was usually rather calm, changed dramatically. He's about to suppress those two by himself. Senior martial brother Zhuge had a solemn expression. The aura of that purple-haired youth's forbidden eye bloodline technique made him feel uneasy. Meow! The small cat on Zhao Yufei's shoulder turned into a streak of silver-gray light that flashed by. I can't hold on any longer! The Blue Serpent King roared as he turned into an ice serpent dragon once more. However, even his ice serpent emperor bloodline, which was ranked in the top 10 among Imperial Dao bloodlines, trembled uneasily when facing this opponent's eye bloodline. A faint blue yuan soul in the shape of an ice dragon was being pulled out of the Blue Serpent King's body. Save me, Lord Black Serpent Dragon! The Blue Serpent King fell into limitless despair. He had almost no ability to fight back against Zhao Feng's gaze of the god eye at all, and this was when the latter was facing two people at once. Don't! A multicolored yuan soul was half pulled out from the body of the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. This scene made the mouths of all the pursuing geniuses gape open, and a coldness spread across their bodies. The youth sitting on a tree was still just sitting there. The only difference from before was that he had opened his eyes. He was like the representative of death as a faint smile of mockery formed on his face. An endless purple whirlpool expanded in his left eye, which pulled on the souls of the Blue Serpent King duo. This Thousand Changes illusionist dragon's defense is stronger against soul and illusion techniques. Zhao Feng revealed a weird look as he gazed down from above. In terms of cultivation, these two were both peak-tier kings. They were just a bit away from forming emperor intent. However, their mastery and usage of sold-out techniques was a lot weaker than Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng's gaze of the god eye came from the ancient emperor of death's gaze of death. Zhao Feng had even used this gaze of the god eye against the emperor of death, and it surpassed the original technique. At this point, he had also incorporated the Tao of illusion. Zhao Feng didn't know how stunned Nan Gongsheng behind him was. So, this is the left-eyed heavenly emperor. Nan Gongsheng took in a cold breath. Since he was behind Zhao Feng, he saw the souls of the Blue Serpent King duo slowly leaving their bodies as fear and panic appeared on their faces. Just as Zhao Feng was about to kill the duo, "Stop!" A cold voice that seemed to rule the world sounded in the air. Roar. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's roar sounded from within the Blue Serpent King's and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon's bodies. A scarlet-black flame suddenly started to flicker in their eyes as an intent that could destroy anything in its path was released. Boom! Purple illusory lightning clashed with scarlet-black flames in the soul dimension. On the branch, Zhao Feng's figure shook as his soul trembled. Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Zhao Feng's gaze of the god eye was instantly disrupted, and the Blue Serpent King duo's souls returned back to their bodies. What? My substandard god weapon. The Blue Serpent King was just about to use the misty spatial world, but found that the arm guard on his arm had disappeared. Meow meow. With a flash of silver and gray, a palm-sized silver-gray cat appeared on Zhao Feng's shoulder. Thieving cat, good job. Zhao Feng smiled faintly as he put the substandard god arm guard on his arm. While the Blue Serpent King duo's souls were struggling, the little thieving cat easily stole the misty spatial world off the Blue Serpent King. Let's run away. A dark green flash of light blinked behind the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon's back. Shwa! The Blue Serpent Dragon and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon disappeared, and their auras merged into the forest. As expected, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon left a trick behind on those two. Zhao Feng's left eye saw two transparent balls of light merge into the environment and try to escape. Whoosh! 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 Zhao Yufei, senior martial brother Zhuge, and the group of geniuses finally arrived near the tree, but by the time they arrived, the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon were already running away after their encounter with Zhao Feng. More precisely, the duo didn't have any ability to fight against Zhao Feng's gaze of the god eye at all and were barely able to survive. Although the duo wasn't killed, Zhao Feng had taken their substandard god weapon, the misty spatial world. While there was greed and unwillingness in the arriving king's eyes after seeing Zhao Feng acquire a substandard god weapon, there was more fear and wariness. One of the biggest reasons they chased after the duo in the first place was because of the substandard god weapon, so they were filled with disappointment and lost their motivation after Zhao Feng got it. They didn't have the courage to steal the substandard god weapon from Zhao Feng right now. The youth's left eye returned to normal. The strength of those two souls is close to the emperor level, and because of their bloodlines, bodies, and the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's help, it'll be very hard to kill them. Zhao Feng looked in the direction that the duo escaped in. In a head-on fight, the chance of Zhao Feng winning against the duo was quite slim. Even with Nan Gongsheng's help, the odds were only 50-50. The gaze of the god eye was the best technique to capture or kill the duo, but it failed. However, Zhao Feng's goal was basically reached. He taught the Blue Serpent King duo a lesson while taking the substandard god weapon as well. He also managed to show off in front of the other forces. Now, senior martial brother Zhuge and the other kings didn't dare to attack Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng when they saw them. What beautiful methods you have, and you managed to help against those non-humans. The fake purple-haired demonic duo that ambushed everyone should be the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. Senior martial brother Zhuge went up and gave a smile. The forbidden eye bloodline technique that Zhao Feng just used shocked everyone. Apart from senior martial brother Zhuge, Zhao Yufei, and a couple others, no one else dared to get too close to him. I told you that brother Zhao Feng wouldn't do that kind of thing. Zhao Yufei went forward with happiness. Just a moment ago, she was worried when she saw Zhao Feng standing off against the Blue Serpent King duo, But at the end of the day, he was still that person in her heart, the person that she admired and chased after. Looks like there are some people who understand. Zhao Feng gave a faint nod toward the direction of Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. Zhao Feng might have chased after the Blue Serpent King duo and given them a beating about the problem of the fake purple-haired demonic duo, but he was too disdainful to actually explain the issue to everyone else. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge saw through the non-humans' true identities in the building of refinement, and Zhao Feng admired that. Whoosh! With a flash of silver and purple, Nan Gongsheng appeared next to Zhao Feng. Purple-haired, demonic duo. The hearts of some kings and half-step kings shook. The complete demonic duo had appeared in front of them. The one that attacked a moment ago was Zhao Feng alone. Brother Zhao. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge spoke. There's still more than 20 days till the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon charges into Xianxia Palace. I hope that we humans can work together and face this enemy together. In other words, he wished the demonic duo would work together with them, or at least not cause any internal conflict. Zhao Feng obviously knew what he meant and nodded his head. The Black Serpent Dragon is unrivaled, so we have to use our intelligence. Does that mean that Brother Zhao has some sort of plan? A light flashed across Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's eyes. The two exchanged glances, but neither of them spoke. Although Zhao Feng no longer had a mark of destruction anymore, that didn't mean Senior Martial Brother Zhuge was the same. Roar outside Xianxia Palace. The black-scaled body of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon spun in the air as it used its claws and tail to smash against the god's forbidden array. As time passed, more flaws and holes started to appear in the god's forbidden array. Its defense was weakening. Everyone within Xianxia Palace was a step closer to death with every moment that passed. Zhao Feng knew for sure that the Black Serpent Dragon was unrivaled. After all, it was once an existence that could fight against an ancient god. At the very minimum, the Black Serpent Dragon was a demigod, and it most likely had reached the heavenly divine realm. Ha ha ha! The god's forbidden array is weaker than I thought. I'll be able to enter Xianxia Palace within 20 days. A crazy laughter sounded in Xianxia Palace as a surging intent of destruction appeared. The heart of anyone who had a mark of destruction shook. There's only 20 days left. The hearts of many experts within Xianxia Palace became heavy. On the tree, a lot can happen in 20 days. Zhao Feng slowly got up with a calm gaze. It wasn't as if he hadn't been in such dangerous situations before. Back in the day, he entered the Purple Saint Ruins as an outsider and faced 3 two-star forces by himself as a mere spirit realm. The pursuit of death was also extremely dangerous. He was chased by one of the most ancient and powerful emperors of the Tsang Ocean for several years. However, this time the opponent was an existence that he couldn't defeat. Let's go to the building of refinement. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing jumped onto the ground. He remembered that there were still a few complete items on the tattered weapon rack, including a shield and some arrows. Whoosh! 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 The geniuses that had chased after the Blue Serpent King duo also returned to the building of refinement. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing were neither fast nor slow. Let me inspect this substandard god weapon first. Zhao Feng's gaze landed on the armguard on his arm. The material of the armguard seemed like bronze and silver, but it looked extremely normal. However, if one looked closely, one could feel that it was extremely old and interesting. The Misty Spatial World is a supportive space-type substandard god weapon. Its abilities include storage, moving through space, setting a mark in space, teleportation, and various other things, Nan Gongsheng said with envy. Since Nan Gongsheng specialized in space, he knew a lot more about the legends that were related to the laws of space. With the help of Nan Gongsheng, Zhao Feng soon understood how to use this substandard god weapon. The ancient metal ring on Zhao Feng's hand was now a thing of the past. The Misty Spatial World had the ability to store items since it had its own little world, and the space within it was several times bigger than Zhao Feng's birthplace of Cloud Country. Furthermore, this little world wasn't merely at the early stages of barely materializing like a normal emperor's little world. Zhao Feng's divine sense entered the Misty Spatial World and touched the little world within. This little world was similar to the Purple Saint Ruins. It had its own laws, mountains, rivers, air, water, and heaven-earth yuan qi. There were even some beasts and humans. As expected of a substandard god weapon, Zhao Feng couldn't help but exclaim. The best thing about the misty spatial world was that it didn't require the owner to have a high cultivation. Once someone obtained this substandard god weapon, it was the same thing as immediately becoming the ruler of their own little world. As for the storage ability of the misty spatial world, since it was a separate dimension based on the little world, it was much more stable. Even a demigod would find it hard to damage it. Apart from that, the misty spatial world also had the ability to move through space and teleport to certain places. In theory, as long as there's enough power, we can use the misty spatial world to instantly return to the Tsang Ocean if we set a spatial mark down in the true martial sacred land. Nan Gongsheng said with expectation. Return to the Tsang Ocean? Zhao Feng jumped up in fright. The misty spatial world had such power? It's not just the owner of the misty spatial world that can teleport. The owner can also transfer other things to faraway locations. Nan Gongsheng added. Ability to transfer? Zhao Feng was overjoyed. Although this substandard god weapon didn't have much battle power, its supportive abilities were heaven-defying, and its true value was probably close to an ancient god weapon. Unfortunately, we can't leave a spatial mark in the outside world from here, otherwise we could just return to the continent anytime we wanted. We wouldn't even need to be scared of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Nan Gongsheng added regretfully. Maybe, but maybe not. Zhao Feng shook his head. The god's forbidden array around Xianxia Palace is extremely strong, so things that can happen in normal places might not be able to happen here. However, even then, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were slightly regretfully. If Zhao Feng had gotten this substandard god weapon in the outside world and left down a spatial mark, he could instantly teleport away from most places. Of course, there were some remaining spatial marks on the substandard god weapon itself, but they were much too far away to be sensed, so they couldn't be used to teleport out of here. Even if he could sense them, Zhao Feng didn't want to use them. Who knew what kind of death trap he might end up in? Sang! Sang! Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng entered the six-sided building of refinement. Master! The silver-armored Deng Chao of Sky Suspension Palace sent a private message to Zhao Feng. Through Deng Chao, Zhao Feng could see what was happening in the building of refinement even if he didn't enter it. In the air inside the building of refinement, the progress toward the rusty bronze sword, the curved blade, and the notched axe was much better than before. Amongst them, the ancient god-level rusty bronze sword was still releasing a brilliant beam of green swordlight that interacted with the swordlight that was the little sword saint. They formed a balance in the air, and they even defied the restriction on flying in Xianxia Palace. One could faintly see the little sword saint's hand touch the rusty bronze sword, and he was covered in the power of the tattered ancient god sword that even emperors didn't dare to touch. On the other hand, the other two substandard god weapons were about to be tamed. The notched axe landed above the three imperial princes. The 8th, 9th, and 13th princes teamed up and used their secret bloodline technique to finally gain some recognition from this substandard god weapon. However, the one with the most progress was the curved blade. Come! Xianyuan formed countless waves of light from his hand, which wrapped around the curved blade. At the same time, his emperor-level magnificent power and intent filled the air, and a weird piece of jade on his neck released a glowing white light that covered his body. Wang! Jiang! The curved blade shook and suddenly turned into a snow-white crystal-scaled blade that landed in the handsome youth's hand. At this moment, a snow-like flash of blade light slashed through the air, and an indescribable blade force lit up the crater. The bodies of all the kings shook, and they felt like their souls were about to shatter. Xianyuan managed to grip the snow-white crystal-scaled blade, and his handsome face went red. Right at this moment, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng walked into the building of refinement. When Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng entered the building of refinement, their senses were covered by a flashing blade that lit up the entire area. It felt like an icy cold feeling slashed through their mental energy. The beaming snow-white blade light sliced through the air, and waves of snowy lightning seemed to almost slash the entire dimension into pieces. Xianyuan succeeded. Exclamations sounded from within the building of refinement. Most experts had wary and respectful expressions. Shenyuan 1 was indeed worthy of being a prodigy of the 4-star Sky Suspension Palace. He had become an emperor at such a young age, and he was recognized by a substandard god weapon. He was ranked 7th on the Imperial Genius rankings, which was the highest-ranked cultivator amongst those that had entered the Divine Illusion dimension. If he was able to leave the Divine Illusion dimension, he would definitely go up a few ranks. As expected of a substandard god weapon, Zhao Feng's footsteps paused for a moment before he continued walking inside the building of refinement. Although he had obtained a substandard god weapon as well, it was just a support-type weapon with not many offensive capabilities. On the other hand, the force of that substandard god blade had exceeded the limits of an emperor. It could even threaten mystic light realm sacred lords. Of course, Shenyuan 1 couldn't completely and truly control such a substandard god weapon. Just gaining its recognition expended a lot of his energy. At this moment, Shenyuan 1's face was red as he circulated all his power to control this substandard god weapon. More precisely, he didn't aim to control it, just stabilize it. Only demigods can unleash the true power of a substandard god weapon, Nan Gongsheng murmured, and he and Zhao Feng couldn't help but think of the demigod Kuan Yun. At his peak, demigod Kuan Yun was glorious, and he was considered strong even among demigods. Back at the 10,000 Treasures Tower in the demigod Forgotten Garden, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng obtained the Skylocking Bow and the Chenkuan Sword, which weren't even from the highest level of the 10,000 Treasures Tower. One could imagine that the demigod Kuan Yun probably had strong inheritance sacred weapons, heaven-grade divine weapons, or even substandard god weapons. Congratulations, senior martial brother Shenyuan. The kings from Sky Suspension Palace revealed joyful expressions as well as some envy and admiration. Protect junior martial brother Shenyuan. The apricot-robed girl led some people and guarded around Shenyuan 1. Whoosh! Senior martial brother Zhuge also approached and started guarding. No need. Shenyuan 1 took a deep breath, and his emperor intent became tougher and stronger with the force and laws of the substandard god weapon. However, his energy was being expended. At the same time, elsewhere in the building of refinement. Quick! Put some more energy in. The 3 great gone imperial princes tried to obtain the notched axe. The 9th prince was the strongest, and he was in the middle. Their power started to make the notched axe slowly descend. Wong! Boom! The notched axe suddenly turned into the size of a small mountain that almost reached the top of the 6-sided building. It gave off a dark light that shook the air. At this moment, everyone within the building of refinement felt their body become heavy. Wah! Some of the weaker kings spat out a mouthful of blood as their bodies shook. Control it! The 3 princes combined forces and managed to stabilize the mountain-sized notched axe in front of them. Wang, the giant axe started to slowly compress until it was more than a dozen yards long, and its aura started to fade. Because the notched axe was a heavy weapon, it was harder to control, so the 3 princes had to combine their strength to stabilize it. At this moment, 2 incomplete substandard god weapons had been obtained. The Imperials and Sky Suspension Palace had the strongest forces present, so the kings from other forces obviously didn't dare to steal from them. HM? Is that the purple-haired demonic duo? Someone exclaimed. Watch out! Those 2 thieves are back. Some of the kings were wary. After all, the purple-haired demonic duo were infamous for ambushing and stealing from others. The only items in the building of refinement that are complete seem to be on the weapon stand. Zhao Feng privately told Nan Gongsheng. The demonic duo started to walk toward the depths of the crater like nothing was wrong. Purple-haired demonic duo, how dare you 2 come back? You're courting death. There were some kings in the building of refinement that didn't know what was going on, and they thought that they were the fake purple-haired demonic duo from before. Only the kings that left and returned had respect in their eyes. Purple-haired demonic duo. Killing intent flashed through Shenyuan Wen's eyes after he stabilized the substandard god weapon. In an instant, magnificent power and intent shook the soul dimension and covered Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. Junior martial brother Shenyuan. Stop. Senior martial brother Zhuge wanted to stop him but was a bit too late. Shenyuan 1, Take the lead, and we'll capture the demonic duo together. There were many voices that agreed with Shenyuan when attacking the purple-haired demonic duo. The other kings from Sky Suspension Palace, such as the girl in apricot robes, also didn't know what was going on and were full of enmity toward Zhao Feng. The fake purple-haired demonic duo had ambushed even Sky Suspension Palace. Boom! A magnificent power was about to cover Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. Some of the kings who knew the truth were planning to watch the show because they had seen Zhao Feng defeat the Blue Serpent King duo alone. Would the purple-haired demonic duo be able to retreat unharmed even against Shenyuan 1, an emperor wielding a substandard god weapon? Humph! Zhao Feng snickered coldly as he kept on walking. He didn't even stop. Wang, a white mist covered the duo. Little world? Eh? Substandard god weapon? Shenyuan 1 was slightly surprised. Although he was an emperor, he hadn't formed his own little world yet. Furthermore, the misty spatial world's little world wasn't any average little world. Incredibly, Shenyuan 1's emperor intent was like a stone that had fallen into the ocean. There were no signs of any disturbance. How is this possible? A little world exists in the physical dimension and doesn't have much defense against the power of intent. Furthermore, all little worlds and domains are suppressed in Xianxia Palace, so they can't unleash their full strength. Shenyuan 1 was slightly baffled. After becoming an emperor, he knew a lot more than others. I don't believe it. Shenyuan 1 circulated his emperor intent to the maximum, and his magnificent power crushed toward Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. Nan Gongsheng's heart jumped. This emperor intent seemed to have the ability to slice through all intent, and it suppressed his soul. However, mockery formed on Zhao Feng's face, and a weird scene appeared. Boom! Shenyuan 1's body suddenly shook, and he groaned as thunder and lightning seemed to flash in his soul. Junior martial brother Shenyuan, are you okay? The expressions of the apricot-robed female, senior martial brother Zhuge, and company changed dramatically. Shenyuan 1's body shook, and his face went red. He almost lost control of the substandard god weapon in his hand. He felt that his emperor intent had been blocked by 10,000 arcs of immortal lightning. The first time, his emperor intent was like a stone that sunk into the ocean, but this time he was counterattacked. He could feel a numbing sensation from his emperor intent. Shenyuan 1, you better hold onto your substandard god weapon first. Zhao Feng gave a smile as he and Nan Gongsheng kept walking toward the crater as if nothing happened. You! Shenyuan 1's face turned green and red as if he had been choked. No one was entirely sure about the situation with the substandard god weapon, but after being distracted just now, Shenyuan 1 almost lost control of it. This scene made the mouths of the other kings drop open. Those two thieves managed to ignore Shenyuan 1's emperor intent? On top of that, Shenyuan 1 seems to be the one at a disadvantage? Junior martial brother Shenyuan needed to stabilize the substandard god weapon and couldn't use his full strength, which is what allowed the demonic duo to succeed. Chaos broke out as the kings started to talk with each other, and the expressions of those planning to watch a show were extremely colorful. Junior martial brother Shenyuan. Senior martial brother Zhuge's expression was solemn as he put a hand on Shenyuan 1's shoulder. Senior martial brother Zhuge. Shenyuan 1 glanced at senior martial brother Zhuge after stabilizing the substandard god weapon. It's a long story, but we shouldn't offend Zhao Feng if we can help it, senior martial brother Zhuge said solemnly. Hearing that, the other kings from Sky Suspension Palace, including the apricot-robed female, were stunned. Although the strength of the purple-haired demonic duo already surprised them, they placed even greater importance on them after hearing senior martial brother Zhuge's words. Those thieves managed to get the misty spatial world, and even Shenyuan 1 can't suppress them. The 13th prince gritted his teeth as hatred overtook his face. The 8th prince and Luo Zun exchanged glances with solemn expressions. They had interacted with Zhao Feng more than once or twice, but every time they met Zhao Feng, he seemed to become more mysterious than before. This opponent was just a bottomless hole. The deeper one went, the more terrified they felt. At this moment, the purple-haired demonic duo walked around the crater step by step, and the route they took was the exact same as the Blue Serpent King from before. Some of the kings that had returned told everyone else what happened. The purple-haired demonic duo from before was the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionist dragon. They were defeated by Zhao Feng alone, and he stole a substandard god weapon from them? The kings that received this news were stunned. Even Shenyuan Wen's eyes became wary as he looked toward the demonic duo after hearing this news. At this moment in time, the three strongest forces, Shenyuan Wen, the three princes, and the little sword saint were distracted because of the peerless weapons. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang entering at this moment meant that they were scared of nothing. Zhao Feng, if we really fought just now, Nan Gongshang started to sweat. Our chances of winning against Shenyuan Wen or the three princes are low, but the situation is under our control. Zhao Feng gave a faint smile. Hearing that, Nan Gongshang couldn't help but look around, and all the kings from the other forces had wary expressions and didn't dare to look directly at his eyes. In the six-sided building of refinement, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang slowly walked by the crater toward the depths where the tattered weapon stand was located. All the elite kings present were dead silent. No one dared to challenge them after Shenyuan Wen did and failed. The kings all let out a breath as they warily looked at the backs of the two purple-haired figures with. The duo's actions caught everyone's attention. Is this the true power of the left-eyed heavenly emperor? Nan Gongshang took a deep breath as complex emotions appeared on his face. He was positive that they managed to successfully suppress everyone present. Ta, 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 ta. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang walked with a weird rhythm as they approached the weapon stand on the other side of the crater. The terrifying heat pressured Zhao Feng's sacred lightning body. It was extremely tough even for the Blue Serpent King, who had a strong body and bloodline, to obtain one substandard god weapon on the weapon stand. Ice Imperial Spear. A layer of ice-blue liquid flowed around Zhao Feng's body and formed a transparent ice-blue barrier. Wang. The ice-blue barrier was 1 yard long, and it protected Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang. Shu steam appeared on the surface of the ice-blue barrier as the heat started to erode it. As they truly got close to the weapon stand, the terrifying heat was enough to turn Void God Realm kings into ashes and injure emperors. A silver and purple ripple of light glittered around Nan Gongshang within the ice-blue barrier and helped resist the heat. However, sweat still started to appear on his forehead, and his feet were about to start burning. Wang. A faint golden light flashed around Zhao Feng's body as he used his strong physical force to take the heat head-on. The strength of my bloodline and body might be slightly weaker than Wei Jing, and Nan Gongshang's body isn't as strong as the Thousand Changes illusionist dragons. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled as he came to this conclusion. After all, the Blue Serpent King's body and bloodline were extremely close to the true dragon race, so it was obviously very strong. If the weapon stand was easy to reach, it wouldn't have been the Blue Serpent King's or Zhao Feng's turn. The other kings would have taken everything already. However, Zhao Feng didn't give up. His left eye locked on to the tattered weapon stand. There were 3 arrows, a shield, and a thin, dark green jade sword. All of those items should be substandard god weapons. It'll be very hard to obtain them, Zhao Feng thought. The Misty Spatial World was a support-type substandard god weapon that didn't have many offensive capabilities. The spade that the little thieving cat got was probably similar. It was most likely not an offensive weapon. Of the remaining 3 items, the arrows and the thin sword were offensive weapons while the shield was for defense. Spatial movement. Zhao Feng's left eye suddenly released a ripple that covered the 3 arrows, and a whirlpool appeared in the middle of the ripple. Wang. The air started to hum as each of the 3 arrows radiated a divine golden blood-colored light. The normal-looking rusty arrows became scarlet gold and released a penetrating divine light. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang felt as if space itself had been pierced, and all the king's souls felt a sharp pain. They felt despair and fear, as if they were ruthlessly slaughtered. Those are God-slaying arrows. Although those arrows are small, they are each comparable to a substandard god weapon. Their combined value isn't any less than a normal substandard god weapon. The experts from Sky Suspension Palace and the Imperials recognized these arrows. At this moment, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongshang had to face a sharp, penetrating aura that seemed able to pierce through heaven and earth. Nan Gongxing's body became slightly cold. Although he was facing the terrifying heat of the furnace, his heart was cold. These 3 arrows are smaller, so they should be easier to obtain compared to the substandard god weapons that Shenyuan 1 and the Imperials obtained. Zhao Feng's expression remained the same. Even if they were also substandard god weapons, these 3 arrows didn't have as many materials, and they hadn't been wielded by powerful experts like the other substandard god weapons. The other weapons had the intents and laws of powerful experts fused into their essence. Instinctively, Zhao Feng felt that obtaining these 3 arrows would be easier than the other weapons. The most important thing was that these 3 arrows had no owners. Zhao Feng, do you have any ideas? If you can get your hands on those 3 god-slaying arrows and use them with your sky-locking bow, you'll be able to unleash unimaginable power, Nan Gongsheng said with slight interest. It's not too hard to obtain the arrows themselves, but getting to the weapon stand is. It would be good if we could get the 3 god-slaying arrows to fly out by themselves. Zhao Feng started to think. The heat at the very center was something that even emperors couldn't withstand. The Blue Serpent King couldn't do it, and Zhao Feng couldn't either unless his sacred lightning body suddenly broke through to a higher level or became extremely resilient against fire. Unfortunately, Zhao Feng still hadn't cultivated the fire of wind lightning yet. Meow meow. At this moment, the little thieving cat appeared holding a spade. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng both glanced at the spade that the little thieving cat was holding. This spade also came from the weapon stand. Dang! The little thieving cat dug the spade into the ground, and sparks flew everywhere as a small hole appeared in the special material of the floor. Wang. At the same time, the arrows, the shield, and the thin sword all hummed. Whoosh! 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 The arrows, which were the smallest, flew into the air. Bang! The shield fell onto the ground, and the thin jade sword floated into the air and radiated a power that belonged to substandard god weapons. Nan Gongsheng instantly felt unable to breathe. Zhao Feng had recovered part of his emperor intent and his god spiritual I was extremely resilient against mental energy. So he wasn't frightened. However, they both looked at the spade in the little thieving cat's paws with a weird expression. Dang! The spade in the little thieving cat's paws dug into the ground once again. Whoosh! 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 Some of the legendary materials nearby, such as the god-fallen metal, all quickly gathered toward this location. The spade in the little thieving cat's paws was like a magnet as all of the materials flew over. This scene made all of the king's eyes bulge out. Shwa! With a wave of his hand, Zhao Feng put them away into his misty spatial world. Whoosh! At this moment, one of the god-slaying arrows was flying toward this direction. Come! Zhao Feng raised his arm guard. Who? Shwa! With a layer of white mist, the god-slaying arrow was devoured. So easy! The kings, who were holding their breath, were stunned. This was especially true for the 3 imperial princes. They used everything they had just to finally obtain one substandard god weapon, and one just flew right into Zhao Feng's lap. So that's why. The misty spatial world isn't an ordinary storage treasure. It's a substandard god rank item. That means it can easily store other substandard god items. Furthermore, those god-slaying arrows don't even have their own consciousness. Nan Gongxing understood. The difficulty of obtaining a substandard god weapon by using another substandard god item was much lower than without one. If the 3 princes had their own substandard god storage item, they would have been able to tame the notched axe just as easily. Whoosh! Whoosh! The other 2 god-slaying arrows flew in different directions, and the other king's souls almost exploded. Fear filled their bodies. The god-slaying arrows weren't the only items that were disturbed. The thin jade sword was as well. Quick! Don't let the purple-haired demonic duo get all those substandard god weapons. Some of the kings from the Imperials, Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, and the other forces all took action. Of the Imperials, the domain-level Luo Zun and Wrinkled Elder charged toward one of the god-slaying arrows, while the cold black-robed female from Sky Sword Pavilion and Zhao Yufei charged toward the thin jade sword. We can't just ignore substandard god weapons. How about I go test the strength of the purple-haired demonic duo? The girl in apricot robes from Sky Suspension Palace gave a smile. Shwa! The apricot-robed female flew forward with a flash of multicolored light, and her speed was greater than some domain-level kings. At this moment in time, everyone was fighting against each other, and the source of that was the little thieving cat. Meow! The little thieving cat dug the spade into the ground once again, and the shield hummed as a green beast phantom formed. Because the weight and size of the shield was so different, it wasn't disturbed in the same way. In terms of offense, I have the Chenkuan sword, but I can't fully unleash its power. This shield is perfect for me. Fierceness flashed through Nan Gongxing's eyes. After he spoke, a wicked silver-purple light radiated from his body, and a purple and blood-colored haze seeped out from him that made the nearby auras tremble. This was a power that belonged to an evil god, and its effect was comparable to Zhao Yufei's natural bloodline ability. Wang, as if sensing something, the shield in front of the weapon stand suddenly expanded to look like a small bronze door, and the ancient green beast phantom seemed to become real as it suddenly roared. The door-sized shield finally floated into the air and radiated the pressure of a substandard god weapon. It was more complete, so it was even better than the ones obtained by Shenyuan 1 and the Imperials. However, this meant that the pressure Nan Gongxing had to face increased. Don't force it, Zhao Feng warned. The most likely reason that the Beast Phantom Shield had sensed something was because of the evil god crystal. Only demigods and gods could truly use the power of substandard god weapons. After learning the Holy Wicked technique, Nan Gongxing's mastery of the evil god crystal's power had reached an entirely new level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to raise the shield's attention. Go! A pair of green shoes on Zhao Feng's feet released a jet of green flames, and a golden light of physical force sparkled around him. An ice-blue barrier covered Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing as they reached the place where the Blue Serpent King duo had reached earlier. Shoo! Smoke emanated from Zhao Feng's green shoes due to the extreme heat. Since the heat came mainly from the ground, the shoes blocked most of the heat for Zhao Feng. Nan Gongxing didn't have a strong body, so he stepped onto Zhao Feng's shoulders. He revealed a grateful look. While Zhao Feng was trying to chase after the other gods slaying arrows, he took the time to help Nan Gongxing. Boom! Silver-purple whips formed in Nan Gongxing's hand, and he launched them through the air and managed to wrap around the bronze beast phantom shield. One of Nan Gongxing's feet stepped onto Zhao Feng's shoulder, so his entire body was above the ground. This meant that he had to only face 50 to 60% of the heat. Whoosh! An Earth-grade silver whip in his hand managed to finally wrap itself around the bronze beast phantom shield with a flash of purple and silver. Shoo! The Earth-grade silver whip showed signs of melting. Sii! The terrifying heat traveled across the whip and Nan Gongxing's palm started to smoke, but luckily, he was in Zhao Feng's ice imperial barrier, which decreased the heat. Come! Nan Gongxing circulated the Holy Wicked technique and his spatial techniques. A silver ripple formed near the surface of the Earth-grade weapon, and a large suction force appeared. Shwa! The bronze shield was pulled over and the pressure of a substandard god weapon surged, almost exceeding Nan Gongxing's limits. Nan Gongxing's face went completely red, but he activated his spatial domain at the critical moment, and a layer of purple and blood-colored mist rippled throughout the area. At this instant, a purple and blood-colored mark on Nan Gongxing's forehead blinked, and his hair turned completely purple and red. The wicked power radiating from him increased to a new level. Wang! Boom! His spatial domain, which had fused with the evil god crystal, seemed to have the ability of a little world as a bright beam of purple and blood-colored light engulfed the shield. Success! Excitement and joy flashed across Nan Gongxing's eyes. Zhao Feng had a praising expression. At the critical moment, Nan Gongxing's use of the evil god crystal became perfect. After cultivating the Holy Wicked technique, Nan Gongxing's control of the evil god crystal had reached a stunning level. The core of Nan Gongxing's spatial domain was the evil god crystal, and it was supported by many substandard god crystals. Could be said that, against any domain that wasn't a little world, Nan Gongxing's spatial domain was unrivaled. Sii! Nan Gongxing's hand started to burn, and he immediately released the melting earth-grade weapon. Retreat for now. Zhao Feng gave a moan as his feet started to burn as well. He had stayed at the same location even longer than the Blue Serpent King. One had to know that the Blue Serpent King's body and bloodline were close to the true dragon race, and an ice dragon at that. Shoo! The shoes on Zhao Feng's feet started to smoke, and they almost caught fire. Pong! Zhao Feng circulated his physical force, and he shot out of the area like a rocket as he headed in the direction of another god-slaying arrow. Crack! The instant he left the ground, Zhao Feng's shoes unleashed a jet of green flames before turning black. Whoosh! Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng left the area. They were just standing at an extremely fast speed. Their target was the second god-slaying arrow. There was now a total of 2 god-slaying arrows, and several Void God Realm Kings were fighting for the nearest one. Regardless of anything else, it was still a substandard god weapon. The one who had the biggest advantage at the moment was the apricot-robed female from Sky Suspension Palace. Come! The apricot-robed female gently tapped out with her finger, and beams of 3-colored light revolved in the air and interacted with the god-slaying arrow. In comparison to other weapons, it was easier to obtain the god-slaying arrow. The nearby kings were pushed back by the powerful 3-colored ray of light before they could even get close. This apricot-robed female was one of the 3 powerhouses of Sky Suspension Palace. "This god-slaying arrow is mine," Zhao Feng said expressionlessly. The apricot-robed female smiled and said, "If you have the ability, then come take it." Substandard god weapons were something that even Mystic Light Realm sacred lords and demigods couldn't resist. The apricot-robed female was interested in how strong Zhao Feng was, so she wanted to test his strength out. "Let me handle this." Nan Gongsheng snickered coldly as he turned into a flash of silver and purple and flashed toward the apricot-robed female. The apricot-robed female felt a surge of enormous wicked power crush over, and this force had the power of space merged into it. It was as quick as lightning and extremely hard to counter. "Triple-layered lotus flame!" the apricot-robed female yelled, and a 3-colored light on her body suddenly shook and formed 3 lotuses. At this instant, the 3 lotuses seemed to blossom. Furthermore, every layer of these lotuses had different elements. The green, red, and purple colors represented wind, fire, and lightning respectively. Boom! Pong! The 3 blossoming layered lotuses clashed together against the wave of purple and silver. "This female is even slightly stronger than peak-tier kings." Nan Gongsheng's expression became serious as a layer of purple and blood-colored light with sparkles of silver appeared around him. The sparkles of silver radiated a wicked force that could make the expressions of even emperors change. Crack! Boom! Nan Gongsheng pushed his hands out, and the spatial domain behind him broke through the spatial domain of the apricot-robed female. "This person is so strange." The apricot-robed female's face went red as she retreated. This scene caused Shenyuan Wen's and senior martial brother Zhuge's expressions to change. The news about Nan Gongsheng being terrifying in terms of physical attacks isn't fake, and he has indeed merged an evil god crystal into his spatial domain, senior martial brother Zhuge murmured. The most mysterious and scary person of the purple-haired demonic duo was obviously Zhao Feng, but Zhao Feng's cultivation was low. Apart from the fact that his body was relatively strong, his other physical aspects weren't. Zhao Feng was terrifying because of his abilities in the soul dimension. One was a monster in the physical dimension while the other was heaven-defying in the soul dimension. The purple-haired demonic duo was the perfect combination. "Come!" Zhao Feng laughed as a layer of white mist blinked and engulfed the silver god-slaying arrow. The apricot-robed female steadied herself as waves shook her heart. The purple-haired demonic duo hadn't even attacked her together. The more mysterious Zhao Feng had done nothing. Nan Gongsheng alone was able to suppress her. In just one exchange, the apricot-robed female was pushed back, and the second god-slaying arrow was obtained by Zhao Feng. At the same moment, the third god-slaying arrow was obtained by Luo Zun and the wrinkled elder. Zhao Feng shook his head and didn't try to force things. As for the last substandard god weapon, the fight for the thin jade sword had reached the last stages as well. 18 Heaven Sword. A powerful beam of sword intent shot out from the eyes of the black-robed female from Sky Sword Pavilion, and a half-transparent crystal sword formed a whirlwind of sword light. Boom! Boom! Shwa! Every time the crystal sword moved, whirlwinds would roar. In the outside world, it would be enough to rip apart mountains and lakes. Normal Void God Realm kings weren't able to block even one sword of hers. In terms of strength, she was comparable to Zhouwuji before he had entered Xiaoyang Palace. However, her opponent was even stronger. Ding! 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 Purple figure flew into the air. Her skin was like crystal as it easily blocked the barrage of attacks. "You're not my match." Zhao Yufei extended a jade-like hand that didn't seem to even belong to a human, and a ripple of purple instantly ripped apart the black-robed girl's offense. The black-robed girl had already used her killing moves, but she wasn't able to even injure the opponent. A bitter smile formed on her face. Sang! Sang! Right at this moment, a layer of silver and purple flew over to where they were fighting. Purple-haired, demonic duo. The black-robed girl's expression changed as she revealed a wary look. The little sword saint had turned into a sword at the moment and was currently in a mysterious state. He was probably the only one who could handle this most troublesome purple-haired demonic duo, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. "Yufei, allow me to help you." Zhao Feng waved his hand, and the white mist of a little world blocked the dark green jade sword from escaping. "Brother Feng, you came just in time." Zhao Yufei revealed a joyful expression as she circulated her little world and formed a pincer attack with Zhao Feng. At the same time, her spiritual race bloodline summoned a large surge of Yuan Qi, which covered the dark green jade sword. Nan Gongsheng waved his hands, and silver-purple beams shot toward the substandard god weapon. A while later, with their combined power, Zhao Yufei managed to successfully obtain the thin jade sword. "Thanks, Brother Feng and Senior Martial Brother Nan Gong. This substandard god weapon seems to be of the wood element, so if I give it to Senior Martial Brother Duanmu, he might be able to unleash more of its power," Zhao Yufei said joyfully. It was extremely difficult for Void God realms to unleash the power of a substandard god weapon. Maybe someone as strong as Shen Yuan one could try, but it wouldn't be very efficient. Putting aside substandard god weapons, normal emperors would find it hard to unleash the full power of an item even for heaven-grade weapons and inheritance sacred weapons. Any substandard god weapons obtained here would most likely be given to the forces behind whoever obtained them, and they could become killing cards that could affect the destiny of the entire continent. Of course, Zhao Feng's misty spatial world was different. It was only a support-type item, so it didn't have a high requirement for cultivation. Since the Duanmu family had obtained one substandard god weapon, they were obviously overjoyed, but the one and only ancient god weapon in the Building of Refinement hadn't been obtained yet. In the air, the sword light that was the little sword saint started to merge with the rusty bronze sword that was giving off a green sword light. Everyone could see that the little sword saint's hand was already on the tattered ancient god sword. So weird. The little sword saint's true yuan and life aura have reached the limit, but his soul and sword intent have reached an entirely new level. Zhao Feng was surprised by what his left eye saw. The little sword saint had burned his true yuan and soul to turn into a sword, but this actually increased the power of his soul. In theory, if one's soul became stronger, their lifespan would also rise, but unfortunately, the little sword saint's body had reached its limit. His life force was starting to wither. Senior Sword Saint gained the recognition of the ancient god weapon, but unfortunately, his life has reached its end. The black-robed girl and company from Sky Sword Pavilion had regretful and sympathetic expressions, and everyone present revealed respectful looks. Some kings sighed and started to retreat. Apart from the little sword saint, no one else had such a high understanding of the sword Tao or the courage to give up their life and transform into a sword. The only one that the ancient god sword recognized was the little sword saint. Zhao Feng spoke in a solemn tone. Although life will always come to an end, the soul can remain immortal. Immortal soul? The black-robed girl and company from Sky Sword Pavilion shook and couldn't help but start to think. Wang, Jiang. As if sensing something, the bright sword light that the little sword saint had turned into suddenly started to dim. In the air, The bright sword light that was the little sword saint suddenly started to dim, and the laws of the sword Tao started to spin. Little sword saint. The little sword saint had a smile as his flesh started to become transparent. The smile on his face was still casual and nonchalant. He first glanced at those from Sky Sword Pavilion, then the others within the building of refinement. Amongst that second group, the little sword saint's gaze landed on Zhao Feng, and he nodded his head toward the latter. His understanding of the sword Tao has reached an unfathomable level, and he has given up on life. Zhao Feng was filled with respect. Zhao Feng sensed that the little sword saint's understanding of the sword Tao had reached the level of a peak emperor, or perhaps even the level of a mystic light realm sacred lord. However, the mystic light realm was different from the void god realm. It wasn't just a simple change in the soul. It also placed great importance on the physical aspects. This meant that, even if one's soul reached the requirements to advance, it wouldn't be easy to break through to the mystic light realm if they didn't have the corresponding physical ability. Now, Zhao Feng couldn't even see the level of the little sword saint's sword Tao comprehension. One thing was for sure, though: the little sword saint's understanding and mastery of the sword Tao had exceeded all the experts that Zhao Feng had ever seen, including the sword Tao emperors from the true martial sacred land. The little sword saint's flesh started to become fainter like melting snow. What did you say to Senior Sword Saint? The black-robed girl and company looked at Zhao Feng with enmity and dissatisfaction. The little sword saint hadn't reached the end of his life yet, but Zhao Feng said something, and the little sword saint's life force suddenly started to fade faster. So unfortunate. Your life and soul reached their limit at the last moment, otherwise you would just need to take over another body and recultivate. Breaking through to the mystic light realm wouldn't have been a problem in the future, Zhao Feng said regretfully. It was hard for someone to take over another body with just intent or a partial thought. Intent and partial thoughts were made from mental energy and understanding of laws. They didn't have anything to do with the soul on their own. The lowest requirement to take over a body was a partial soul, since that contained a piece of the actual soul. Before demigod Kuan Yun was reborn through blood, he had imprinted the aura of his soul into the flesh of his immortal sacred body with a special technique when he was still alive. It was because of this that Kuan Yun only needed one drop of blood and a partial thought to revive. However, the little saint's life and soul reached their limit after they were ignited, which was basically the equivalent of complete death. His life and soul were what was fueling his sword intent. I die with no regrets after surpassing my previous understanding of the sword. The little sword saint revealed a satisfied smile before he died. Wang Jiang. The next instant, a spiritual sword phantom from which the little sword saint's aura could be sensed merged into the rusty bronze sword. Shua! The tattered ancient god sword started to shake, and a wave of cold green sword light with unrivaled power forced everyone back. However, despite the tattered ancient god sword's powerful, it didn't harm anyone. Senior Sword Saint. The black-robed girl from Sky Sword Pavilion had a surprised expression as she now held a green tattered sword in her hand. At this moment, everyone's gaze landed on the black-robed girl. She got the ancient god weapon. That Mo Dongyao is a prodigy of Sky Sword Pavilion. Looking at the past several thousand years, her talent in the sword Tao is only below that of the little sword saints. Everyone's gaze locked onto the black-robed Mo Dongyao, the prodigy of Sky Sword Pavilion's young generation. She just fought with Zhao Yufei a moment ago and lost. However, after the little sword saint died, everyone was unable to hide the greed in their eyes as they looked at Mo Dongyao. What kind of effect would an ancient god weapon bring to the entire Lord dynasty? Even if it was some tattered piece of crap, it was still a weapon from the domain of gods and related to the heavenly divine realm. That said, normal forces wouldn't be able to hold on to it even if they managed to steal it. The only forces present with the ability to do so were the Imperials and Sky Suspension Palace. Ancient god weapon? Probably even we don't have one. The 13th prince's eyes were fiery hot. If he was able to take an ancient god weapon back to the imperial family, such a feat would greatly increase his chances of winning the competition to be the sacred emperor. Let's go, Zhao Feng suddenly said. and he walked toward the exit with Nan Gongsheng. He wasn't interested in an ancient god weapon too much. At least not right now. Putting aside an ancient god weapon, even substandard god weapons would bring a huge amount of trouble to a void god realm. Forces that weren't at least 3-star level wouldn't be able to protect the tattered ancient god sword. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng turning around was the exact moment the 13th prince decided to take action. Wang, Jiang. A sword light suddenly flashed behind Mo Dongyao's back, and it gave off an immortal sword intent that seemed able to slash through heaven and earth. Arg! All the kings that were planning on taking action, such as the 13th prince, felt their minds hurt. Their souls were like candles blowing in the wind, about to be extinguished at any moment. Fear and despair overtook their hearts. Humph! A half-transparent sword-light figure formed the outline of the little sword saint. Spare me, Senior Sword Saint. Please spare me. The kings that were planning on taking action felt like they were facing the little sword saint when he was at his peak. All the kings suddenly felt like their souls were tiny in comparison. Even Shenyuan Wen's soul shook. He was like a small tree in a hurricane. A pure soul-type sword Dao attack. Are these the laws of the soul sword? Zhao Feng murmured. Mo Dongyao held the tattered ancient god sword and gave off an immortal and undying sword aura. The pressure of an ancient god weapon suppressed everyone present, and the king's hearts jumped. They didn't have the ability to even think about fighting back. How is this possible? How can Mo Dongyao control the ancient god weapon? The 13th prince's face was white, and he felt unable to breathe. At this moment, Mo Dongyao could kill him with just a thought. Even normal emperors wouldn't dare to clash with Mo Dongyao head-on right now. Mo Dongyao is just the wielder. The true controller of the tattered ancient god sword is the little sword saint. Senior martial brother Zhuge took a deep breath. The little sword saint gained the recognition from the tattered ancient god sword, then turned into a soul sword and merged with it. This meant that the little sword saint could decide who got to control the ancient god weapon. To a certain extent, the little sword saint was basically a sword spirit now. Little friend. An old voice sounded from the half-transparent sword-light figure behind Mo Dongyao's back. Zhao Feng's footsteps stopped. He turned around and looked toward Mo Dongyao, confirming that the voice was calling him. Senior Sword Saint, is there anything you need? Zhao Feng didn't dare to be disrespectful. Even thought he had given up his life and now existed as a spirit, the little sword saint was countless times stronger than before in his current state. Little friend. The old voice gave a sigh. There's only 20 days left till the black serpent dragon charges into Xianxia Palace, and no one will be able to survive. I hope you can help everyone resolve the danger. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. The little sword saint placed his hope on one of the demonic duo. Not Shenyuan Wen or the three princes, but a wicked youth that was infamous for stealing. However, they had to admit that no one here could see through Zhao Feng, and they were full of wariness and caution toward him. Me? Zhao Feng laughed, as if he had heard a joke. His expression was saying, you want a thief to save everyone? Isn't that a bit childish? I don't know where you come from nor your background, but I can confirm that, out of everyone here, you're the most likely one to succeed. This isn't just my instinct. The ancient god weapon feels the same, the old voice said solemnly. The ancient god weapon. Zhao Feng's heart shook. Could the ancient god weapon sense the existence of his ninth god's eye? His left eye bloodline came from a deity in the ancient era, and the ancient god weapon was a weapon of gods and was related to the domain of the heavenly divine realm. If you can take the Sky Sword Pavilion members and escape, I will owe you a favor, the white sword-light figure promised. Deal. A light flashed through Zhao Feng's eyes. Although the little sword saint's life had come to an end, his current state was even more terrifying than before. Besides, Zhao Feng alone wasn't enough to deal with the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon anyway. A while later, the leaders of all the forces gathered in front of the Building of Refinement. This time, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng weren't acting alone. That purple crystal tower is the core of Xianxia Palace, Zhao Feng said as everyone's gaze landed on the magnificent purple crystal tower that shot into the sky. The tower was at the very center of Xianxia Palace. and its pressure shook all the king's hearts. The key to the Yuan sealing divine chains and the center of the god's forbidden array are most likely there, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge said. Since the danger of the Black Destruction Serpent King was coming closer, no one had the heart to search for other fortune in Xianyang Palace. Although they might have only scouted out 1/10 or even 1/100th of the fortune within Xianyang Palace, what was the point if you couldn't leave with it alive? Let's go. The great Gan Imperials were the first to leave and head in the direction of the Purple Crystal Tower. Those from the Sky Suspension Palace, the Duanmu family, and company then followed. Let's go. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng also headed toward the Purple Crystal Tower, and the group from Sky Sword Pavilion followed behind the purple-haired demonic duo. If it wasn't for Senior Sword Saint, I wouldn't follow these two thieves. Mo Dongyao's face was cold and unwilling, but they felt calm for some reason when following the purple-haired demonic duo. We're getting closer to the call of that power. The purple and blood-colored symbol on Nan Gongxing's forehead started to become hotter. It was like a second heart as it thumped on his forehead. The danger was slowly approaching, and all the elites within Xianyang Palace began to make their way toward the Purple Crystal Tower at the very center. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were currently with the people of Sky Sword Pavilion because of the deal between Zhao Feng and the Little Sword Saint. As of right now, resolving the threat of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon is the most important thing. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. They hadn't scouted much in Xianyang Palace. At the very most, they had only seen 1/10 of the palace. However, no amount of treasure was as important as their lives. Everyone had less than 20 days left, which was why Zhao Feng agreed to the Little Sword Saint so quickly. If Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were concerned with profit at this point, they wouldn't have joined a group since it was easier by themselves. On the way, Zhao Feng found that the wicked power within Nan Gongxing's body was acting unusually, and Nan Gongxing's expression was solemn but excited. For now, Nan Gongsheng can still maintain his attitude, but the evil god crystal is corrupting him more and more. Who knows how long the mind-calming pearl, water soul pearl, and green water sky lotuses will have an effect? Zhao Feng was slightly worried. He would respect Nan Gongxing's decision. He agreed to help, so he would. Whoosh! 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 The Purple Crystal Tower in sight started to become bigger. Every bit closer they got, the stronger the force from the Purple Crystal Tower. The Purple Crystal Tower contains a supreme power. Just the slightest bit of aura leaking from it is so terrifying. Mo Dongyao's tattered ancient god sword sensed something. She then glanced toward Nan Gongxing. Everyone's heart started to thump under the terrifying aura, and even the true Yuan within their body started to tremble uneasily. Only Nan Gongsheng was excited, and some force within his body was extremely active. Although the Purple Crystal Tower didn't seem far away, it was. A couple hours after they left, the Imperials and Sky Suspension Palace arrived first. What a terrifying aura! This Purple Crystal Tower probably contains some of the remaining power of the evil god Xianyang. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge had a solemn expression. No one knew why the sealed power within the Purple Crystal Tower started to become active, but the pressure radiating from it almost made everyone unable to use their true Yuan at all. The groups from the Duanmu family, Sky Sword Pavilion, and some other forces soon arrived as well. Other people have been here before. Nan Gongxing's nose twitched as the scarlet golden nose ring shook slightly. This scarlet golden nose ring came from a golden skeleton within a ruined city, and it had a super sense of smell. It could be used to track others and even smell the element of various treasures. Zhao Feng's shoes came from the golden skeleton as well, but they exploded after being damaged in the building of refinement. As soon as Nan Gongsheng said that, plop, the silent door to the Purple Crystal Tower opened, and two figures rolled out. It's Zhou Wuji. A bald male in dark battle robes caught everyone's attention. Both of these figures were from Nine Darkness Palace. Zhou Wuji was able to steady his emotions a bit, but he was unable to hide the shock on his face. The other king was ruffled and seemed as if he had lost his soul. Brother Zhou, what's the situation like inside the tower? A king asked curiously. This tower should be the ancient god Xie Yang's place of cultivation. and it contains a terrifying power that suppresses all outside forces. Zhou forced himself to calm down and take a deep breath. The two figures sat on the ground and were drenched in cold sweat. We didn't see any living things in the tower, but our souls and true yuan were completely suppressed. We couldn't even use them, the other king said with shock. Both the soul and true yuan were suppressed? Shenyuan 1 and company all looked at each other as they started to analyze the situation within the Purple Crystal Tower. Without a doubt, the Purple Crystal Tower should be the center of Xianxia Palace. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment in time, the groups from some other forces could be seen around the Purple Crystal Tower. Amongst them were the forces from the Ji family, Grand Duke Qi's palace, and the Jiang family. We can't enter its depths, Jilan said. The various forces were all spread out in Xianxia Palace, and some forces had arrived earlier than others. There might have been a small number of groups still in places like the Building of Refinement or Dark Book Room, but as time passed, everyone would approach the center of Xianxia Palace from the threat of dying to the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Sang! Whoosh! A male in a t-shirt landed on a roof of the Purple Crystal Tower. Xian Wuheng. The male in the t-shirt was alone, and he stood out. Xian Wuheng stood with his hands behind his back, and he had a solemn expression as he looked over the groups from the Sky Suspension Palace, the Imperials, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng, and Mo Dongyao. This Purple Crystal Tower is called the Evil Sky Tower, and it has some remaining god power left. Although it's very weak and not even 1,000th of its peak, it can suppress anything below the demigod level. Xian Wuheng let out a long breath. Evil Sky Tower? Everyone felt weird. How did Xian Wuheng know the name of this tower? Xian Wuheng, does that mean you've already entered it? Zhao Feng asked. Xian Wuheng nodded his head. He had indeed gone inside, but he failed. In addition, Xian Wuheng had already done some scouting. All of the buildings around the Evil Sky Tower were important, and many of them had the God's Forbidden Array guarding them. The Evil Sky Tower still has a bit of god power remaining. It suppresses true yuan the strongest, then the soul and body. In other words, the higher cultivation one has, the more of a disadvantage they'll have, Xian Wuheng explained. The failures of Zhou and Xian Wuheng made most of the people give up on the Evil Sky Tower. I want to try, Nan Gongsheng said. The purple and blood-colored mark on his forehead blinked, and the summoning sensation was more than 10 times stronger than before. I don't have a problem with that. Xian Wuheng glanced toward Nan Gongsheng as if he was thinking about something. I came here to tell you all some more important news. It was obvious that Xian Wuheng wasn't very interested in the Evil Sky Tower itself. The most important task was how to escape from the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Important news? Everyone's eyes landed on Xian Wuheng's face. Xian Wuheng was the same as Zhao Feng. They were both mysterious figures shrouded in mist, and none of the kings were able to see through them. I found the core of the God's Forbidden Array, Xian Wuheng said straightforwardly. Hearing this, everyone's heart shook. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon mentioned 2 points when threatening them. The first was the key to the Yuan Sealing Divine Chains, and the second was the core of the God's Forbidden Array. Obtaining the key or destroying the core would spare them from the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's wrath. No one expected that Xian Wuheng had already found it. Puny humans. The God's Forbidden Array is full of flaws. But if you destroy the core, I will spare you. A voice that reigned supreme sounded in the ears of everyone present. The Black Serpent Dragon's voice could be clearly heard by those who had the mark of destruction. God's Forbidden Array? Take us there quickly. This may be our chance to turn the tide. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge revealed a joyful expression, and Zhao Feng also revealed some emotions. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's thoughts were the same as his own. That's my plan as well. My strength is limited. Xian Wuheng nodded his head. He found the core to the God's Forbidden Array, but his strength was limited, so he was unable to turn the tide alone. Puny humans, you can't control the God's Forbidden Array nor use it to threaten me. The Black Serpent Dragon mocked. In Xianxia Palace, the God's Forbidden Array could be considered a big net that covered everything inside and out. As long as they found the core gained control of it, they would be able to control the entire God's Forbidden Array as well. This was the first thought that Zhao Feng had when he entered Xianyang Palace. It wasn't just him that had this plan either. There was also senior martial brother Zhuge, Xian Wuheng, and some others. There were also people that were thinking about the key to the Yuan sealing divine chains. If they were able to obtain the key, they could use it to threaten the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. After all, there was very likely only one key. The core of the God's Forbidden Array is behind us. Xian Wuheng turned around, and everyone saw a dark silver building made of a metallic material, and it didn't have an entrance. There was no way to enter, and before they could even get close, they felt an enormous force from the God's Forbidden Array. This building is called the God's Array Building, and all the switches to the Forbidden Array are located here, Xian Wuheng explained, and the various groups started to head toward the God's Array Building. The Evil Sky Tower and the God's Array Building were right next to each other. Of course, there was still a small number of people that stayed next to the Evil Sky Tower and didn't give up. Amongst them were Shen Yuan I, the Ninth Prince, the purple-haired demonic duo, Zhao Yufei, Luo Zun, and Mo Dongyao. There were more than a dozen kings that wanted to give it a try. It doesn't matter if you give it a try. Xian Wuheng wasn't against it. Just know when to give up. Although the Evil Sky Tower won't threaten your life, it can do some strange stuff. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as those words finished, all the figures started to head toward the Evil Sky Tower. After all, the Evil Sky Tower was where the ancient god Xianyang cultivated, and it was the center of Xianyang Palace. The others gathered at the God's Array Building and tried to find a way to enter it. There's nothing wrong with just witnessing the power of a god. Shen Yuan entered the Evil Sky Tower with the fastest speed. Behind him was the Ninth Prince, Zhao Yufei, the purple-haired demonic duo, and the rest. The Ninth Prince was originally ranked 13th on the Imperial Genius rankings, but his cultivation had reached the peak-tier king level after entering Xianyang Palace. Boom! The instant they stepped into the Evil Sky Tower, a wicked aura appeared. It seemed able to shatter heaven and earth. The weaker kings almost spat out blood, and Zhao Feng felt his body become heavy as the true Yuan in his body seemed to freeze. True Yuan is almost completely restricted here. Some of the Void God Realm kings felt extremely troubled after entering the tower. Since Zhao Feng's level of true Yuan was the lowest, he just gave up control of his true Yuan and let the aura suppress it. The wicked aura within the Evil Sky Tower suppressed the true Yuan of all normal experts. The present Void God Realm kings felt like their true Yuan was frozen. The more one resisted, the stronger the force. Therefore, Zhao Feng made the smart decision and just allowed the aura to suppress his true Yuan. This would lower the pressure he had to face. Plop! On the other hand, one Void God Realm king instinctively circulated his true Yuan and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell to the ground. He didn't get up for a long time. The difference between these people was immediately seen. Those at the very front were Shen Yuan I, Zhao Feng, Nan Gongsheng, Zhao Yufei, and Mo Dongyao. After them were peak-tier kings such as the Ninth Prince, while behind them were domain-level kings such as Luo Zun. The power within the Evil God Tower isn't something that we can touch. No wonder even Xian Wuheng failed. The faces of several normal kings went red after taking just a few steps, and they wanted to leave. They could only watch as the first group went further. The purple-haired demonic duo can walk at the very front? Zhao Feng hasn't even reached the Void God Realm yet. Luo Zun was angry. The reason Shen Yuan could walk at the very front was because of his cultivation and strength. As an emperor-level prodigy of a 4-star power, he was powerful even among emperors. Zhao Yufei had the bloodline of the spiritual race and a unique body. Mo Dongyao had the ancient god weapon protecting her. However, it was incredible that Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng could walk at the front as well. Comparatively, the power here suppresses true Yuan the stronger, then the soul and physical body. Zhao Feng didn't find it troublesome to move. In terms of the soul, only Shen Yuan I could be compared to him. In terms of physical body, Zhao Feng had reached the 5th level of the sacred lightning body and surpassed almost all other kings present. After giving up total control of his true Yuan, Zhao Feng was more relaxed than the others. However, the most unusual one was Nan Gongsheng. Although his cultivation, body, and soul were all relatively average, he was able to walk at the front. There was even a feeling of floating when he walked, and the wicked power within his body was very active. Zhao Feng realized that the wicked force within the evil god tower didn't seem to suppress Nan Gongsheng. Nan Gongsheng licked his lips with excitement and expectation. A while later, the group of kings slowly reached the second floor of the evil god tower. Everyone found some valuable treasures, and there was a table, a chair, a book, and a drawing in front of them that were unusual. The aura that some of these items radiated wasn't weaker than substandard god weapons. However, the god's forbidden array within the evil god tower was extremely complete and had no flaws. Even if it wasn't, no one could take the items due to the suppression of that remaining god power. The pressure on the second floor was much stronger than the first. The 5 people at the very front were fine, but some of the kings behind them felt unable to breathe as the pressure increased. Apart from the special suppression of True Yuan, the other aspects of the suppression aren't even as strong as the ancient dream realm. Zhao Feng's expression remained the same. He entered the ancient dream realm a lot, so he was used to a lot of pressure. It wasn't too troublesome for him to walk in the evil god tower with his powerful soul and body. Around the time it took to make tea later, the 5 geniuses at the very front reached the 3rd floor of the evil god tower. The scenery on the 3rd floor was different. It was related to the environment that the owner of the evil god tower lived in. No one paid attention to it, they just kept going further in. At this point, some normal kings had already retreated. If they went any further, they might not have the energy to go back out. The first 5 people didn't know how many floors the evil god tower had, so they just kept on climbing. Sometime later, Shen Yuan 1, Zhao Feng, Nan Gongsheng, Zhao Yufei, and Emo Dongyao reached the 5th floor. At this time, sweat appeared on Shen Yuan Wen's forehead, while Zhao Yufei's breathing rate quickened and her face became red. I will be staying on the 5th floor. Shen Yuan Wen gave a faint smile as he suddenly sat down. The other 4 were baffled. Shen Yuan Wen was the strongest person here. Why wouldn't he continue? The power in this place is very different from what I cultivate. I just want to stay here and feel the aura of that god power. Shen Yuan Wen revealed a slightly embarrassed expression, and Zhao Feng understood how and why Xian Wuhing failed. Xiayang Palace contained a lot of fortune, but not all of it was suited for everyone. Sky Suspension Palace that Shen Yuan Wen came from was a 4-star superpower with its own techniques, while the evil Sky Tower contained a wicked force that was much different from the techniques he cultivated. Instead of taking a risk, it was better for him to know his limits and just feel the remnant power of a god. The heavenly divine realm was above mortals. It belonged to the domain of gods. The heavenly divine realm was what came after the mystic light realm. Once one broke through this realm and passed the god tribulation, they would be recognized by heaven and earth itself and become a god. The ancient god Xiayang was a god-rank expert, and according to the legends, each god had their own positions. For normal experts, this was just a legend, but the power of a god within the evil Sky Tower made the hearts of some geniuses thump. If they were able to obtain this power, they might be able to touch the domain of gods. This was something that emperors and mystic light realm sacred lords would be unable to resist. Feeling the power of a god is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Shen Yuan Wen closed his eyes. This left behind 4 people at the very front: Zhao Feng, Nan Gongsheng, Zhao Yufei, and Emo Dongyao. Zhao Yufei's face started to go pale on the 6th floor, but she was still able to resist since she had a spiritual race bloodline. On the other hand, Emo Dongyao relied more on the ancient god weapon for protection. Yufei, Lady Emo, why don't you 2 give up? The fortune within the evil Sky Tower is probably dangerous, and it might not even be suitable for you too, Zhao Feng said. Xian Wuhing may not have even entered the next floor. Brother Feng, senior martial brother Nan Gong, be careful. Zhao Yufei didn't continue. Maybe the spiritual race bloodline could still take her higher, but she could see that the fortune within the evil Sky Tower wasn't suitable for her. Sorry, but I need to continue. This is what Senior Sword Saint wants, Emo Dongyao replied, and the tattered ancient god's sword in her hand released a faint green swordlight that surrounded her. Okay. Zhao Feng didn't force her. The little sword saint had given up on his physical body and merged with the ancient god weapon. So his understanding and mastery of the sword Dao had reached an incredible level. Ta, 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 ta. Only Zhao Feng and two others were left walking in the evil sky tower. On the way up, the purple and blood-colored mark on Nan Gongxing's forehead flickered, and his hair had become the same color as the mark, which now differed with Zhao Feng's dreamy purple hair. Wang. A purple and blood-colored light glittered around Nan Gongxing's body, as if it was extremely excited and impatient. Of the three, Nan Gongxing walked at the very front because the wicked god power within the evil sky tower didn't suppress him at all. On the 7th floor, Nan Gongxing stopped for now. A cold voice sounded from behind him. It came from the purple-haired youth, who was covered in golden light. Zhao Feng. Nan Gongxing's excited and impatient expression dimmed down a bit as he felt a coldness freeze his soul. At this moment, the left eye of the purple-haired youth was like a freezing pond as it froze Nan Gongxing's soul. How is this possible? How can he use his eye bloodline in the evil sky tower? Mo Dongyao couldn't believe it. She couldn't unleash her sword Dao intent under the pressure of the evil sky tower or any other power. But this youth was still able to use his eye bloodline? Facing Zhao Feng's left eye bloodline, Nan Gongxing's body shook, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Who? Nan Gongxing let out a breath as cold sweat covered his back. He immediately sat down and started to concentrate. Zhao Feng, thank you. Nan Gongxing's complex expression contained gratitude. At this moment, Zhao Feng's eye bloodline was unleashed, and his purple hair blew wildly as he released an aura that belonged to the ancient era that could scare both gods and devils alike. This aura couldn't be suppressed by the remnant god power within the evil sky tower. The ancient is broken, and the ancient god slain will turn into endless dust. An old sigh seemed to reverberate throughout Zhao Feng's mind. Pong! Pong! At this instant, the god's spiritual eye started to thump, and the nearby wicked aura started to tremble uneasily. At the same moment in time, a purple and blood-colored figure on the highest floor of the evil sky tower exclaimed, "The aura of an ancient deity. What's the relationship between that eye bloodline and the 8 great god eyes?" The pressure from the wicked aura decreased. On the 7th floor, Nan Gongxing's eyes started to become clear again as he became calm, and he nodded his head solemnly. "Let's go." The three continued to walk toward the higher floors of the evil sky tower. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. No one knew how many floors they had gone past, but the three finally reached the top. The top floor of the evil sky tower was empty apart from a black futon. There was no one here, and the pressure of the god power had reached an extreme here. Zhao Feng's body was stiff to the point where he almost couldn't move. Even breathing was hard, but luckily, his god spiritual eye wasn't affected. "Watch out!" Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed. He felt an enormous source of mental energy that made even his god's spiritual eye uneasy. He immediately started to inspect everything in the area with his left eye bloodline, but he was blocked by the remaining power of the evil god. Ta, ta. The purple and blood-colored marking on Nan Gongxing's forehead started to thump, and a summoning force made him walk toward the black futon in the very middle. Zhao Feng immediately used his eye bloodline to try to stop him but was blocked by the power of the evil god. He and Mo Dongyao could only watch as Nan Gongxing arrived at the black futon and sat down as if he was the owner. Boom! The instant Nan Gongxing sat down, the remaining god power within the entire evil sky tower shook. It was as if space itself was going to crack. A forbidden aura swept across Xianxia Palace from the evil sky tower and made countless beings tremble in fear. At this moment, the remnant god power within the evil sky tower started to shake. Zhao Feng and Mo Dongyao saw purple and blood-colored light shoot out from the corners of the evil sky tower and interact with the black futon at the very center of the highest floor. Nan Gongxing was sitting on that black futon. Pong! 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 There seemed to be some kind of source within his body that turned into a heart and summoned the purple and blood-colored lights. At the same instant, a forbidden wave of evil god power swept across the entire Xianxia Palace, starting from the evil sky tower. Within the evil sky tower, Shenyuan 1, Zhao Yufei, and company who were in a state of comprehension felt unable to breathe, and the true yuan and blood within their bodies started to freeze. What happened? Why is the remnant god power gathering toward the highest floor? Shenyuan 1 was stunned. Over the past 2 days, he had been quietly comprehending the remnant god power, and he realized that this power didn't belong to anyone. Instead, it was contained within the evil sky tower itself. Since the remnant god power wasn't controlled or owned by anyone, it was now extremely faint after so much time had passed. However, despite its faintness, the rank of this power still easily surpassed normal kings and emperors. Even normal mystic light realm sacred lords would be suppressed to a certain degree. Behind the evil god tower, the forces from Sky Suspension Palace, the Imperials, Nine Darkness Palace, Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, and company gathered in front of a sealed dark metallic building. This sealed metallic building was the God's Array building and the core of the God's Forbidden Array of Xianxia Palace. In front of the God's Array building stood Xian Wuheng and Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. They were at the very front, and next to them were a couple array masters. At the very center was a 5-colored whirlpool made of arrays. Wang. The remaining kings formed a long line and merged their true yuan into the shoulder of the king in front of them. A surge of true yuan then flowed to Xian Wuheng and company at the front, and then into the 5-colored whirlpool array. Xian Wuheng and Senior Martial Brother Zhuge stood in front of the 5-colored whirlpool array and used a profound technique to summon the power within the 5-colored whirlpool array. A rune shot out from the 5-colored whirlpool array and into the God's Array building. Wang. A divine light rippled across the surface of the God's Array building, and a terrifying aura was unleashed that made everyone unable to breathe. However, a white door frame started to form on the surface of the dark building. We're just a little bit away from finishing inspecting it. Xian Wuheng let out a breath. I didn't think that Brother Xian also specialized in Heaven's Legacy secret techniques, or that you had reached such a level of mastery. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge revealed a weird expression. I just know a little about the Heaven's Legacy secret techniques of a branch unit. I'm not as well-rounded as Brother Zhuge, Xian Wuheng said humbly. Even if he knew how to get it, it would be hard for him to do so alone. Luckily, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge was an extremely knowledgeable genius. His mastery of Heaven's Legacy secret techniques was more complete. They finally managed to find a breakthrough point as all the kings gathered their power. Xian Wuheng's eyebrows suddenly furrowed as he turned toward the evil sky tower with a pair of flashing eyes. A forbidden god power suddenly swept in every direction from the evil sky tower toward the rest of Xianxia Palace. That force! The expressions of all the kings changed dramatically. It was as if they were in a large wave and couldn't stand stably. The instant the forbidden aura arrived, all the power within everyone's body was frozen, and the kings in front of the God's Array building were like zombies. Only Xian Wuheng, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge, and a small number of people were able to see what was happening. There's a faint trace of the remnant god power within the evil sky tower, and it seems like it's being awakened. It's gathering together. Xian Wuheng's eyes twinkled. Since he had been into the evil sky tower before, he understood a bit about it. Xian Wuheng had found the remnant god power. It didn't have an owner, but without enough luck and destiny, one couldn't obtain this power even if they knew it was there. Putting that aside, no one even dared to touch it in the first place. There was only a little hope if the technique one cultivated was along the same lines as the technique that the ancient god Xianxia cultivated. The technique that Xian Wuheng cultivated was completely different, so he couldn't obtain that power. On the contrary, he had to hide even further away than the others. Apart from that, Xian Wuheng faintly felt a mental energy aura that could affect all the remnant god power within the evil sky tower. He didn't want to take the risk, so he gave up on going into the evil sky tower. Outside Xianxia Palace, pong boom, the enormous black-scaled body of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon was smashing into the God's Forbidden Array. More and more flaws in the God's Forbidden Array were revealed, and cracks occasionally appeared. The purple and blood-colored light shot out wasn't as strong as before. A faint trace of the god power. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon suddenly stopped as it revealed a wary and stunned expression. Who? The surge of the evil god's forbidden power even swept outside Xianyang Palace. Although the black destruction serpent dragon didn't move, solemnness appeared in its eyes. After being sealed for who knows how many millennia, the black destruction serpent dragon was extremely weak, and it couldn't use many of its abilities since it still had the Yuan sealing divine chains wrapped around its body. The black destruction serpent dragon also wasn't able to see what was happening in the top floor of the evil sky tower. The marks of destruction on Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng had already been dissolved, and the mark of destruction within Mo Dongyao's body had also been destroyed by the ancient god weapon. Therefore, apart from the three present, no one else knew what was happening on the top floor of the evil sky tower. Zhao Feng and Mo Dongyao looked at the shocking scene in front of them. Nan Gongsheng sat on the black futon, and all the purple and blood-colored light from the evil sky tower gathered onto him. The purple and blood-colored symbol on Nan Gongsheng's forehead was extremely wicked, and it seemed like a second heart as it thumped. On top of that, wicked purple and blood-colored images appeared on his skin. Shwa! Boom! Nan Gongsheng revealed a painful expression as a purple and blood-colored spatial domain covered him. The spatial domain was filled with silver sparkles. As the purple and blood-colored lights merged into the spatial domain, it started to materialize. Little world, evil god crystal. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye saw what was happening. In just a couple breaths, Nan Gongsheng's spatial domain had turned into a purple and blood-colored little world with silver walls. When the purple and blood-colored light of the evil sky tower entered the evil god crystal at the center of the little world, it started to connect to Nan Gongsheng's source of strength. Damn it! Nan Gongsheng's intent has been affected. Zhao Feng felt a wicked mental energy undulation come from the black futon as it merged into Nan Gongsheng's source of strength alongside the purple and blood-colored light. Nan Gongsheng's face began to twist as the purple and blood-colored flower images on his skin became brighter. Who's there? Zhao Feng circulated his eye intent and several hundred symbols of God Tribulation lightning lit up, but Zhao Feng only radiated some pressure from his eye intent and didn't actually attack. If the mental energy had forcefully taken control of Nan Gongsheng's body, Zhao Feng and Mo Dongyao may have been able to stop it, but it seemed to be ready for that. It hid within the black futon, then merged with the purple and blood-colored light as it entered Nan Gongsheng's body. Ziziz? The power of the god Tribulation and the aura of an ancient deity? What a surprise! Another voice sounded from within Nan Gongsheng's body. Nan Gongsheng had been assimilated by the god power, and his spatial domain and source of power had been changed as well. Even his mental energy and attitude had changed. Mental energy thought body. An old voice sounded from behind. Jiang. An immortal sword intent that seemed like it could slice through heaven and earth was unleashed from the ancient god weapon in Mo Dongyao's hand. At the same time, the outline of the little sword saint formed from half-transparent swordlight behind Mo Dongyao. Mental energy thought body? Zhao Feng couldn't help but start to think. A mental energy thought was similar to a demigod partial thought, but more complete. It contained a certain amount of mental energy that could transform into a type of spirit and affect the outside world. Ziziz, that's right. I'm the archery god mental energy though body of the ancient god Xianyang. A half-transparent purple and blood-colored figure appeared within Nan Gongsheng's body. It existed in a unique mental energy state. It wasn't a soul or an intent, but a thought that could affect the outside world. So lucky! Zhao Feng let out a breath. It would be extremely bad if it was the intent of the ancient god Xianyang himself. The intent of an ancient god would be able to decide who lived and who died, and it could even control the entire Xianyang palace. It was similar to the demigod intent in the demigod Forgotten Garden, but it was obvious that Xianyang Palace didn't have any ancient god intent. It was just a forgotten palace that belonged to no one. Since this thought body didn't contain any part of a soul, it was unable to actually steal someone's body, but it could affect and assimilate others. I didn't expect you humans to give me such a surprise. This person's domain and source of strength has even merged with an evil god crystal of Master Xianyang. Ziziz, this human will become the new body for the remaining power of the evil sky tower. To a certain extent, it can be considered that I will have a new life. The half-transparent purple and blood-colored figure smiled smugly as it merged into the source of strength within Nan Gongxing's body. Hearing that, Nan Gongxing's expression changed dramatically. He knew what this evil god mental thought body had in mind. Although the evil god mental thought body was unable to steal a body, it could turn Nan Gongxing into another person. Nan Gongxing would still be Nan Gongxing, but his personality wouldn't be the same. Humph, you're just a measly mental thought body. I won't let Nan Gongxing be turned into someone like the ancient god Xianxia. Zhao Feng snickered coldly. Gaze of the god, I. The youth's left eye turned into a deep purple-colored whirlpool that extended to the other side of an abyss. At the same time, a suction force that pulled mental energy and souls enveloped Nan Gongxing. Kakik. This force isn't strong enough to threaten me yet. The evil god mental thought body within Nan Gongxing's body laughed. Its mental energy was extremely strong. It was comparable to mystic light realm sacred lords at the least. Who said I was going to do anything to you? The next instant, a purple-silver soul was about to leave Nan Gongxing's body. Nan Gongxing's soul? Mo Dongyao exclaimed in disbelief. What? Stop! The evil god mental thought body roared as his wicked mental energy swept across the area. Although it was a mental thought body and could affect the thoughts of living things, it couldn't take over a body. Once Nan Gongxing's soul was taken, its plans would fail. It couldn't assimilate a shell with no soul, right? Instead of allowing Nan Gongxing's personality to be changed, how about, I take care of his soul? The purple-haired youth's eyes seemed to contain divine purple lightning. He spoke each word with a pause. Instead of allowing Nan Gongxing's personality to be changed, how about, I take care of his soul instead? Zhao Feng's harsh tone and decisiveness shook Missouri Dongyao's heart. She was stunned and couldn't believe that Zhao Feng would use such an extreme method of removing Nan Gongxing's soul from his body. However, this move was extremely effective. It instantly caused the evil god mental thought body to start panicking. Being a mental thought body, it wasn't able to control or assimilate a shell that didn't have a soul. Gaze of the god's eye. The majority of Nan Gongxing's silver and purple yuan soul was being pulled out of his body. Zhao Feng. Nan Gongxing's soul struggled in the air and panicked. Anyone that had their soul controlled by someone else would start to panic. Nan Gongxing, you can't blame Zhao Feng. You need to thank him instead. Even if you gained unrivaled strength, what's the point if it's not your own personality? An old voice sounded from the white sword-light figure behind Mo Dongyao's back. The white figure formed the outline of the little sword saint, and from his tone, one could hear that he approved of what Zhao Feng did. Indeed, although Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing were friends and trusted one another after all the battles they had been through together, if Nan Gongxing was going to lose his personality, then Zhao Feng would rather just remove Nan Gongxing's soul from his body. Nan Gongxing, the reason Senior Sword Saint came was to stop you from being assimilated by the power of the evil god and transforming into a big threat. If that happened, then he would kill you himself, Mo Dongyao said. Hearing that, the hearts of Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing went cold. After merging with the ancient god weapon, the little sword saint existed in a mysterious state, but if he wanted to kill Nan Gongxing, then even Zhao Feng may not be able to stop him. Nan Gongxing, relax. Even if you lose this body, we still have a bunch of spiritual flesh snow jade lotus roots, Zhao Feng said. Spiritual flesh snow jade lotus root. The white figure made of swordlight shook slightly, but he had already missed the best chance. It would be hard to regain a body at this point. Shua! Nan Gongxing's soul finally left his body, even though he struggled in unwillingness. Although the spiritual flesh snow jade lotus root could create a new body, it might not be as talented as his original body, which was a spatial spiritual body and a heavenly spiritual body. Furthermore, he had merged the power of the evil god crystal and the remnant god power into his body, and his spatial domain was just upgraded to a little world. All in all, Nan Gongxing was unwilling. One only recultivated if they had to for a better future, but if Nan Gongxing recultivated, he would lose most of his advantages. Shoo! Black smoke started to rise from the black futon under Nan Gongxing's body. Not good. Without a soul, The god power will not have an owner anymore and fade away along with me. The evil god mental thought body within Nan Gongxing's body was enraged and started to panic. Wang. A powerful surge of mental energy gathered in Nan Gongxing's body. A half-transparent purple and blood-colored figure 100 yards tall formed around Nan Gongxing's body. Get back here. Two large, transparent purple and blood-colored hands extended out from the figure. One of the purple and blood-colored hands was calm and soft as it grabbed toward Nan Gongxing's soul, while the other burned with a purple and blood-colored flame as it smacked toward Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng instantly felt his soul become cold. In this state, most people would give up on the gaze of the god's eye and protect themselves instead. In reality, though, the gaze of the god's eye being stopped was unavoidable anyway. Although the evil god mental thought body didn't have any part of a soul in it, its mental energy was extremely powerful and far surpassed peak-tier emperors. However, Zhao Feng didn't defend himself after stopping the gaze of the god's eye. Instead, he circulated his soul power and shot it at the evil god mental thought body. I was waiting for you. Several hundred symbols of god tribulation lightning lit up in Zhao Feng's purple soul sea. Boom! 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 A sharp beam of purple god tribulation lightning pierced into the purple and blood-colored figure that was the evil god mental thought body. Arg! The evil god mental thought body instantly let out a scream. Zhao Feng's understanding of the Tao of the soul had reached a high level, and the god tribulation lightning could damage the evil god mental thought body. At the same time, Zhao Feng groaned as he took the attack from the flaming purple and blood-colored hand head-on. However, Zhao Feng believed in the resilience of his god's spiritual eye. Although it wouldn't let him come out completely unharmed, he wouldn't be critically injured. Reality proved that, although the evil god mental thought body had a large source of mental energy that was comparable to mystic light realm sacred lords, it was still just a thought body, and it was weak in terms soul-based attacks. Zhao Feng's soul was only slightly injured. Sword destroying the sky. An immortal sword intent that could slash through heaven and earth suddenly shot out from the white figure that the little sword saint had turned into. The soul sword laws that were used were enough to shock emperors and force back sacred lords. Jiang. Mo Dongyao slashed out with the tattered ancient god weapon in her hand, and a brilliant beam of green light sliced straight into the evil god mental thought body. In this moment, the little sword saint's soul sword laws merged with the ancient god weapon and unleashed an ultimate force that could destroy both physical objects and the soul. It instantly ripped the enormous body of the evil god mental thought body apart. Arg! The evil god mental thought body let out a scream of pain. What a terrifying attack! Nan Gongxing's soul entered a state of fear. Just the aura from that one sword made his soul feel as if it was about to be destroyed. The power of this ancient god weapon had exceeded the power of an emperor, and the little sword saint's soul sword laws could injure the soul of a mystic light realm sacred lord. Wind lightning eye flame. A surge of fire made of eye bloodline power shot out from Zhao Feng's left eye. It glittered with purple and a dark symbol of god tribulation lightning. Bam! Boom! A transparent dark lightning flame with the aura of god tribulation lightning burned across the evil god mental thought body. Zhao Feng's wind lightning eye flame was a pure soul attack using the god tribulation lightning as the main force, and it landed at the exact moment its body was ripped apart. Boom! 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 The evil god mental thought body felt as if 10,000 bolts of lightning exploded in its body, and the eye bloodline flame of god tribulation lightning kept on burning. Soul sword charge. The little sword saint phantom figure expanded to 100 yards wide and released a white crystalline sword beam. This beam utilized pure soul sword laws to pierce through the enormous body of the purple and blood-colored figure. Arg! Under the combined forces of the little sword saint, the ancient god weapon, and Zhao Feng, the evil god mental thought body had to face a barrage of attacks, and it let out howls and cries one after another. Crack! At a certain moment, the purple and blood-colored figure shattered and turned into countless streaks of faint purple and blood-colored flames, which merged into the source of power within Nan Gongxing's body. Gaze of the god's eye. Zhao Feng used this chance to pull out Nan Gongxing's soul. Shoo! Right at this moment, the black futon beneath Nan Gongxing's body turned into a pile of ash, and the purple and blood-colored lights that had gathered within his body were released. Nan Gongxing's little world showed signs of breaking apart. This force was coming from the center of Nan Gongxing's little world, and it was enough to destroy his body. Zhao Feng, put me back. Nan Gongxing's soul struggled. Pong, 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 pong. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye started to thump, and he could see the disaster forming in Nan Gongxing's body. If the remaining god power within Nan Gongxing's body flowed away calmly, the worst-case scenario was that only Nan Gongxing's body would be destroyed. It would only bring Zhao Feng and company a tiny bit of trouble. However, if this power didn't flow away and exploded instead, then no one present would be able to survive, and it would probably wreck Xianxia Palace. You maniac! Stop! The shattered evil god mental thought body within Nan Gongxing's body shouted in fear. Once this power was released, then the evil god mental thought body within Nan Gongxing's body would be the first to die. The evil god mental thought body has been broken, so its threat is a lot lower. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled as he made a decision. This wasn't just out of consideration for the upcoming danger. It was also out of respect for Nan Gongxing. Shua! With a flash, Nan Gongxing's Yuan soul returned to his body and quickly started to consolidate the source of his power. The purple and blood-colored light that was expanding quickly calmed down, and Nan Gongxing's little world also stabilized. In this period of time, the evil god mental thought body that had been broken into pieces merged into the purple and blood-colored light and helped Nan Gongxing stabilize the force instead of troubling him. This situation lasted for an entire half a day, and the remaining power of the evil god within the evil sky tower disappeared. Most of it had merged with the evil god mental thought body and into Nan Gongxing's body. The evil god mental thought body's aura was extremely weak, as if it had been completely broken and fused into Nan Gongxing's source of power. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed, and it could guess what the evil god mental thought body wanted to do. As if wary of Zhao Feng and the little sword saint, the evil god mental thought body didn't dare to assimilate Nan Gongxing anymore. Instead, it just merged his power. Now, Nan Gongxing would be affected by the evil god mental thought body every time he absorbed the power within his little world and his source of power. This was a slow process, but the more power Nan Gongxing absorbed, the more his personality would change. Zhao Feng and the little sword saint couldn't stop this unless they killed Nan Gongxing. At this instant, Nan Gongxing's eyes glittered with silver and purple, and the purple and blood-colored mark on his forehead became brighter and brighter. He instinctively licked his lips as a wicked smile formed on his face. Nan Gongxing, this is your choice. This is the price you pay for your power, Zhao Feng murmured. On the top floor of the evil sky tower, Nan Gongxing was sitting calmly, but his expression was different from before. The evil god crystal was the foundation of his little world. He was circulating and constantly absorbing large amounts of wicked purple and blood-colored light into his body. Zhao Feng and Mo Dongyao could feel that the aura radiating from Nan Gongxing's body was becoming stronger. Along with the increase in strength in such a short period of time, his personality was also slowly changing. In reality, any expert's personality would change as time passed and as their strength increased, but Nan Gongxing's changes were unnatural. These changes would change his characteristics and attitude, essentially turning him into someone else. The evil god mental thought body had everything to do with this. Although Zhao Feng and the little sword saint had shattered the evil god mental thought body, its mental energy was extremely powerful, so it wasn't destroyed even after breaking apart. What made it more troublesome was that, after breaking apart, it merged with Nan Gongxing's power. Of course, Zhao Feng had done his best. If it wasn't for him, Nan Gongxing's personality may have already changed dramatically, or he might have been killed by the little sword saint. Zhao Feng, I won't forget your help and support. Nan Gongxing revealed a look of gratitude as he struggled. It was obvious that he was trying to fight back against the power that was trying to change his personality. At the moment, it seemed like Nan Gongxing's personality had changed to a certain degree, but he still knew what gratitude was, meaning that his personality hadn't been completely changed. And I don't regret today's decision. Nan Gongxing revealed a wicked smile of satisfaction as he felt the power in the depths of his body, and he felt like it could suppress heaven and earth. What kind of power didn't come with a price? All he had to do was slowly dig out this treasury of power. Currently, Nan Gongsheng had only absorbed the tip of the iceberg, and yet his strength had increased dramatically. A while later, Zhao Feng finally spoke. Nan Gongsheng, I can only help you up to here. I don't know and don't care what kind of agreement you and the evil god mental thought body came to, but success or failure depends on you. Hearing that, Nan Gongsheng's body shook, and the shattered evil god mental thought body within his body also gave a curious exclamation. The two were surprised as to how Zhao Feng knew that they made an agreement. After saying that, Zhao Feng turned around and started to descend the evil sky tower. Mo Dongyao stood still and gave Nan Gongsheng a few cold glances, then finally left unwillingly. Let's go. Without Zhao Feng's help, it'll be very hard to deal with Nan Gongsheng, who has become so much stronger. The little sword saint's old voice sounded in her ears. Nan Gongsheng's silver and purple eyes flashed as he looked at the leaving Zhao Feng with complex emotions. Ziz, that youth is the Zhao Feng that you can't surpass? Don't worry, if you and I work together, we'll be able to surpass him before long. The evil god mental thought body said. Nan Gongsheng's expression started to struggle as he changed the topic. I didn't expect him to see that we made a deal with each other. Humph. You wouldn't have been able to circulate and absorb the wisps of god power so easily without my help. It's not surprising that that youth could see this. The evil god mental thought body snickered coldly. On the top floor of the evil sky tower, Nan Gongsheng sat there as the aura radiating from him became stronger and stronger. Within half a day, his cultivation had reached the peak level as a king. If it weren't for the fact that emperors needed their soul to evolve, he would have already become an emperor. However, the undulation of power coming from Nan Gongsheng wasn't something other void god realms could compare to. Even the expressions of mystic light realm sacred lords would change. At the same moment in time, the others within the evil sky tower had left, including Shenyuan One, who didn't dare to risk it and see what happened to the god power on the top floor. After all, the aura of that power was completely different from his own, so it wasn't worth the risk since he wouldn't gain anything anyway. However, Zhao Feng met Zhao Yufei along his descent, and she was trying to go up and see what had happened. Brother Feng, it's good that you're fine. Zhao Yufei let out a breath. The aura of power from the top floor moments ago was terrifying. Even at this moment, there was an undulation of power from the top floor that could shake anyone's heart. It was enough to surprise even emperors. A while later, Zhao Feng, Zhao Yufei, and Mo Dongyao walked out of the evil sky tower. Where's Nan Gongsheng? Zhao Yufei finally realized something. Mo Dongyao was about to reply, but she stopped. Who knew what the reactions of the other people would be if they knew Nan Gongsheng had inherited the remaining power of the ancient god Xiaoyang, and his personality was being affected by the evil god mental thought body. Nan Gongsheng will come down soon, Zhao Feng said with confidence. Everyone was still facing the danger of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. The evil god mental thought body was part of Nan Gongsheng now, so it couldn't just ignore things. After calculating the time, they realized that the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon only needed about 17 days to break into Xiaoyang Palace. The roar of a dragon and an aura of destruction could be felt outside Xiaoyang Palace. Those with powerful senses would instinctively feel as if they were in danger. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The trio started heading toward the God's Array building. When Zhao Feng and company arrived at the God's Array building, there were already many other human experts present. The God's Array building contained the core of the God's Forbidden Array and was related to the survival of all the outsiders. At this moment, 90% of those that had entered Xiaoyang Palace were gathered here. The God's Array building has been opened. Mo Dongyao revealed a joyful expression as she glanced at a flashing white door in front of the dark silver building. There were almost 10 Void God Realm Kings in front of the flashing white door. They all combined their true yuan in order to keep the flashing white door open. Within the God's Array building, Xian Wuheng, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge, and some array masters were gathered together and discussing something. Although we've entered the God's Array building, it's the center of the God's Forbidden Array, so the core is extremely complex and will require a long time to gain control. An Imperial Array Master gave a sigh. One could see condensed purple crystalline lightning symbols above them, and together they formed a single large array. These purple crystalline lightning symbols changed every second, and they were connected to complex lines that affected the entire God's Forbidden Array around Xianxia Palace. The space within the God's Array building was extremely big, comparable to a small castle. On top of that, the power contained within the array symbols was extremely strong. Just a wisp of it might be able to kill a king. The people trying to figure out this purple crystal lightning array were undertaking a big risk. Be careful. The God's Forbidden Array has been running for countless years and has some flaws. It'll occasionally release a wisp of power, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge warned. Some holes could be seen below the purple crystal lightning array, and the material that made up the God's Array building was something that even emperors would find hard to damage. What a complex array. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed as his god spiritual eye gave it a rough inspection. Even with Xian Wuheng, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge, and company leading the group, the array masters and kings couldn't find a breakthrough point. Even if they had some ideas, they didn't dare to take action because an enormous force was being used to circulate the God's Forbidden Array, and a single wisp of power from it could kill emperors. This place was definitely one of the most central places of Xianxia Palace. I suggest that no one try to destroy the core of the Forbidden Array in order to gain forgiveness from the Black Serpent Dragon. The arrays here have a self-protecting system that can counterattack. The damage it can deal is something that none of us can handle, Xian Wuheng warned. Surprise flashed through his eyes as he looked over toward Zhao Feng and company, as if he was curious where Nan Gongsheng was. Nan Gongsheng was always next to Zhao Feng, but he hadn't appeared after entering the evil sky tower. Zhao Feng didn't explain anything. He opened his left eye bloodline and started to inspect the purple crystal lightning array and help Xian Wuheng, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge, and company to resolve it. Zhao Feng's help increased their progress. In the blink of an eye, 8 days passed. With Zhao Feng's help, they were able to understand a bit of the purple crystal lightning array. However, they only understood some of the theory and were still far away from actually solving it. It is, after all, something from the domain of gods. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge started to become tired, and all the half-step kings and kings in front of the God's Array building were covered in a solemn atmosphere. There were 10 days left till the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon entered Xianxia Palace. We only have 10 days left. The elites within Xianxia Palace could feel death creeping up on them. Zhao Feng and Shen Yuan when both had emperor intent and could feel the power of destruction become clearer. The power of the God's Forbidden Array was slowly weakening. Arg! Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. I'll fight it out with you. In the last 10 days, some of the experts and elites started feeling despair and unleashed frenzied attacks. I have the misty spatial world, so I might be able to escape when the God's Forbidden Array is destroyed. Zhao Feng was already thinking about how to escape. The misty spatial world had the ability to pass through and teleport across space, but this could only be done when the God's Forbidden Array was destroyed. However, there would still be a lot of danger involved. Apart from all that, Zhao Feng was waiting on something else. Later that afternoon, a purple and blood-colored streak of wicked light descended from the sky with an evil aura. Who is it? The kings and half-step kings in front of the God's Array building felt unable to breathe. In this instant, the true Yuan within their bodies started to freeze, and they were almost unable to control their power. Wah! The half-step kings spat out blood. Shwa! Everyone looked in shock toward a wicked purple and blood-colored hair youth. There was a purple and blood-colored mark on his forehead, and he landed on the ground with a flash of silver and purple light. One of the demonic duo Nan Gongsheng. How did he turn into that? The Void God Realm kings present felt unable to breathe as a terrifying undulation of power enveloped them.